And it's recording. Okay, great. Okay, so welcome to the Principles of Elevation. And I want to begin just directly with some practice this morning for you, this afternoon for the rest of us here in London. So please set up your seat to begin practice. Where's Sense? Oh, you've got the chair. Okay, great. I just was checking. I didn't see a chair. I was like, where's the chair? Okay, great. Yeah, sure, of course. And you know you might have someone slipping in behind you, and there's space. Oh, we're not going to be able to start yet because apparently there's 2 more people downstairs. The good ship Elevation is about to set sail. Hi, welcome, the 2 of you. Wonderful. So we'll just make a little space by pushing back in that corner, I think is smart. Yeah, just make two people spaces over there somewhere. I'll still be able to see you. Welcome, Yanis and Marina. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to see you. Get anything you need for your seat. So if you want to run now, the 2 of you, get blanket or whatever you feel you'd like for your seat. I like to sit flat on the floor, and we'll talk a lot about seat. We'll be working out a lot of kinks for seat. I like to sit on the floor or on a chair, pretty much flat. I don't want a bunch of stuff under me. But I taught for many years that it was a good idea to have a bunch of stuff under you, and some of you were my students, and some of you have your own practices, and so it feels good for you. So whatever's clever for the beginning. But we will be sitting this first sit's probably going to be about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. It's completely guided. Yeah, so it's an attunement. Yeah. Do you have enough space there? Maybe Charisse moves a little closer to Tina. Ava's going to move closer to me. So when I talk to Allie and Sam and Tina and Ava, I'll have to do this. Look down the way. That's fine. We'll work it out. Thank you. Yeah, and if you have something that you want to put on the altar, you can put it on. That signifies your wish to grow. Wow, wow. Nobody fall down those stairs. Yeah. I never even knew that was there. That's amazing. Okay. Is everybody comfortable in their seat at this moment? You know, Tiff, you can also come real close to me and be far away from stairs. Delightful. Okay, let me bring my camera back. Okay, all right, welcome everyone. Okay, so set yourself up so that we can enter into a little practice together. It's perfectly acceptable to keep your eyes open or have them closed. But if you choose to have them open, I recommend that you cast your gaze at a sort of fixed, like you can kind of imagine a circle about 2 feet in front of you when you're sitting on the floor. It's a bit further away if you're sitting on the chair, okay? And then you just let the gaze fall into that place. And you point it there and then you sort of let go. So what you don't want is for your eyes to wander, so that you just have a kind of area that you're looking at, and then you sort of release your fixation in the gaze, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to everyone? And otherwise, you can practice with your eyes closed, so you have that option. So completely up to you. You also have time. We have a whole year to work out the kinks. So if you want to change your mind at a certain stage, you can. So the first thing that we're going to do, and this really is in alignment with the formal teaching in the Lojong slogans and in my training. So you can even use your hands if you want and measure 6 finger widths on top of your head to that point. 6 finger widths on top of your head. You can also just guess and estimate, but you might like to take your hands there and sort of feel into it. Yeah. And so that point there is called the Dwarashanta. The Dwarashanta. So those of you who have tantric sadhanas and have practiced in tantric streams of yoga may be very familiar with this. So our first phase of practice for today is to put your attention there. And you can imagine almost like a little circle of light at that point. If you're not good at visualizing, you don't need to worry. Just put your attention in that place. So you put your attention at the Dwara Shanta. And my invitation to you is for you to begin to consider your teachers, those who've imparted wisdom to you, really your teachers of all sorts, teachers in various schooling scenarios, teachers who may have been a part of your life through your different spiritual practices, people, anybody, we can say the teachers of the people who have imparted wisdom. And we're going to start with like the human teachers from your life. So you can imagine their face just sort of appearing, and their face is going to just appear. Let their face or their body or just however you remember them sort of appear in that circle of light. And it's a little bit like one of those apps on Instagram where it sort of flashes this and then it changes to the next thing and then it changes to the next thing. So you can kind of do it like that and let these sort of teachers come through. And just you have a little moment with each one and then let it keep changing as you remember different teachers and teaching lineages held in that little circle of light. And then we're going to move from the human teachers who are still around to the human teachers maybe who are no longer living. So you have both those that are still alive and then those who are no longer living. And some of you are a part of committed lineage streams. And if you know some of the lineages of the gurus, then you can picture them as well, going as far back as you are aware. You could also, if you feel you don't know a face, you could put the name there because the name is going to hold that energy. And now we're going to start to move into what I would call like a higher valence of the teachers. Now we're going to move into Buddhas. We're going to move into deity forms, or we could say any sort of like, we could say higher being kind of form. And you begin to picture those beings. These are the ones that you walk with, the ones that you feel connected to at different times in your life. And even if you feel I'm no longer connected to this teacher or that lineage, you can just sort of put it there just as a way of honoring that that's been a part of the fabric of your spiritual experience. And so you let the deities you've worshipped, or even where you've visited a temple and felt some affinity, all these different forms of the teacher as they've shown up in your life, as they've held frequencies of energy that have allowed you to access your wisdom, that have made you a part of a wisdom stream. And then we're going to move into, some of you may have what's known as the Ishta Devata, the Ishta Devata. You have particular deity forms who you're incredibly close to. And maybe you even have a particular guru lineage that you are absolutely in dedication to. And as we come to the close of this part of the practice, we're going to let that entity sit there in the light. And if that's not the case with you, if there really is this sort of large grouping, and you can even intend to place in that circle of light the beings who are supporting you that you're not even aware of, but you sort of, would like to get to know or know are supporting you in some way. And so from here, I'm going to invite you to have the sense that all that whole bandwidth of beings are really somehow still in that circle of light. So now like almost like a big stack of them, just amazingly sort of sitting in this circle of light above your head at the Dwadashanta. And now I want to invite you to begin to have a sense of almost distilling all of those energies into the one intensely benevolent, profoundly potent, deeply awakening, really the very highest frequency of imparting wisdom and sharing in wisdom that all of these beings are actually sharing in their relationship to you and the movement through time. So almost like the light circle that you've been holding them in starts to become saturated with this quality of the teacher, saturated with this quality of intense benevolence, really quite profound, beyond what your heart or your mind could really fully take in. The capacity to see you in so much of a higher light than you have ever been able to see yourself. And so we let that grow very intense. Let it grow just as intense up there at the Dwara Shanta as it can. Just the intensity of the benevolence. The intensity of the wakefulness inside. That benevolence, we could say, is the vehicle by which the wakefulness moves into life, returns into life. And we could say that what I'm describing here, we could say, using language of tradition, is the guru principle. We are now installing and relating with the guru principle. And once it grows into its greatest intensity, you can simply allow it to be there. You can see that while you're practicing, we sort of situate ourselves in, we turn our system, we place above us, literally. We place above us this particular kind of energy that allows us to move forward in the smoothest way that we can. And now you can sort of just let it go. We're going to count. I'm going to invite you individually to count 21 breaths. You just literally, you breathe in and out and then count one. Breathe in and out and count two. So we do 21 breaths. Just very simple. You don't need to make it fussy. Some of you might feel, oh yeah, no, I want to take a deep breath. And so then you just take a deep breath. And then at this point, we'll jump off into this exploration in meditative space at the end of 21 breaths. And the first invitation is to observe the thinking and the images and even the sensations that arise in your mind. You just observe our thoughts. And the instruction as we begin to observe, you could reflect, for example, on what you've thought about so far today. Some of you haven't been, if you're calling in from far away, you might not have been awake for very long. But you also might reflect on the kinds of things you were thinking about yesterday. Really anything at all, the kinds of things you've been thinking about recently, thoughts that have been on your mind. And then the instruction is to observe the dreamlike quality of all of these thoughts. So some of your thoughts are worries. Some of them seem very justified. We could call them genuine concerns. And still, it exists as a thought. And as a movement, we could say somehow in the mind. And the instruction is to observe the dreamlike quality of it. Notice even, we could say, the sort of tightest little thought that seems to gather around it a tremendous amount of tension still has this slippery quality. It is not fixed, we could say, and sort of immutable in that way. So we're just observing the vaporousness of all thinking. Notice what happens when you turn your attention to that dreamlike quality, to that vaporousness. And now we're going to begin to unpeel, we could say, into another dimension of the experience of mind. Because you may notice, you may have already noticed, or in any case, you are now instructed to notice that awareness is the field in which all of these dreams, we could say, are floating or moving. And so begin to take your attention to awareness itself. There's an awareness that's aware of the ambient sounds of our locale. Awareness is then aware of all the thinking that we just turned that awareness towards. Now begin to really sink into the texture of awareness. Really turn awareness into awareness. Notice what awareness is like. Texture of awareness. The sort of awarenessiness of awareness. How hard it is to find another descriptor to describe it. How it's sort of qualityless and yet very persistent. We could say awareness itself has this character of a certain kind of vastness. Like awareness doesn't seem to kind of have a limit, does it? Where does awareness end in the space around, in the end of, where does awareness end altogether? Any place you place your awareness, there it is. So this instruction is to observe awareness. And the phrase that is used in mind training is unborn awareness. So see if you can sink yourself into awareness so much that you can sort of just see that the way that awareness, we just don't know where it came from. It isn't like there's a sense that there's a moment where awareness started, where it was born. You're invited now to observe the unborn quality of awareness, which we could say is somehow connected to its persistence, to its alwaysness. You may notice that everything starts to get a bit more soft and floaty, almost like it's gotten a little bit fuzzy. So now the instruction is to move your attention towards the sharp and clear, we could say the clearness of awareness. And awareness has this naturally, it doesn't matter what mood we're in, or, sort of what we had to eat last night, and then therefore how we feel today, or what we got up to before. That even before there is the feeling and the experience of our mood, there's awareness, and awareness itself has this kind of lucidity that is just a part of awareness. And we could say that lucidity of awareness is liberation. So where there is a fuzziness, when we start to loosen our grip on our thinking and start to recognize some of the softness, and now we start to sink into the vastness and the bigness and the beyond limitationness of awareness, we turn to its liberative, natural, fundamental quality. So now this invitation to move, and we're just tiptoeing in, we're just having a little taste. To observe the quality, that clarity of awareness. See if you can just sort of, there it is. We often associate clarity with a particular state of mind. But now here we're presented with the instruction that indicates that the clarity is just simply there. And we are invited to learn to observe it. So we let the liberative quality arise, the liberational essence arise. And then we have finally the instruction to come into rest into all of this. We could say we could just learn to let our attention take a seat in its wholeness. Let awareness take a seat in its wholeness. The instruction is to rest in the abode of everything. And the abode, of course, is awareness itself. But there's a very particular gesture that we as meditators and as sadhakas learn to do. And this is the gesture to take a seat in it. And in so doing, there's quite a bit that we let go of. And we do it persistently. We don't just think that we should be able to do it and then we just stop. There's a training. We undertake a training in resting in the essence, in the awareness that is simply the absolute context of your entire experience at all times and forever. And then begin. Take your tongue and run it along the inside of your lips. Run your thumbs along the tips of your fingers. And you may feel drawn to take a deeper breath. And even to reach your arms overhead, keeping your eyes or your gaze steady, not changing it at all, and lean a little bit from side to side. And lean forward and back. Before you, if you've had your eyes closed, open your eyes. Take a moment to softly lift your gaze, or if you've had your eyes open, to take a moment to lift your gaze and begin to come into this space. So I'm going to try my best with a turtleneck with this. Hold on a moment. Hold, please. You can also move your legs, of course. Okay. So welcome. I'm going to check my notes to make sure that I want to stay on track to the best of my ability. There we go. Okay. So welcome, and really I welcome you with all of my heart again. And what I first want to do, now we've had just a little transmission, a little bit of experience, is I want to give you a little introduction, but I think it might be nice for us to introduce ourselves first. That just seems right now. I'd had it the other way around, but I think it sounds better. Let's hear from everybody. So I want to invite you, and I'm going to put this in the chat box as well. Don't be like that. Yeah, there we go. So I want to invite each person to share your name and your pronouns. And please also share, and I'm going to phrase it like, I'll phrase it exactly how I have for folks in the Zoom room. A little something about yourself, what calls you, what's alive for you right now, what you're working with, where you're coming from right now, and then close with a little blessing for the group. So, it can be very brief. My name is Layla. My pronouns are they, she, and I am working with having quite a lot of things to do all at the same time. So a real sense of expanding the container. And really working with energy in this incredibly, I'm really noticing how much presence is required to kind of really live in what I'm creating for myself. And so I'm working with that right now. And then my blessing for the group will be that we really are able to come to rest and come to find a home in the essence of our being. Yeah. Okay. So that's I just modeled it, but you also got to hear from me. So that's nice. I'm going to pass the microphone around. I'm sorry, folks online. I won't be able to work the camera. That's like a stage too far, but you will hear the voices, and at different points we'll be able to see the faces. So I want you to be able to see Rich and Nora and Catalina, who probably won't be with us, if at all. They definitely won't be with us today. So, but it would be nice to do say hi. So we'll work that into the flow so everybody feels the community that we're sharing in for a whole year. Isn't that incredible? A whole year. It begins. All right, here we go. Ava.
Can I please have the prompts again? Could you just say them again?
So I said each person share name, pronouns, and offer a little something about yourself, what calls you, what's alive for you right now, what you're working with, or where you're coming from, and a little blessing.
Okay.
And I'll repeat that as many times as you want to hear it.
Okay. Hello, my name is Ava. I use she or they pronouns. And where I'm coming from, what I'm working with, this year I'm really focused on romancing my artistry and deepening in my practice as an artist, a revolutionary artist. And where I'm coming from, yeah, that is part of where I'm coming from. And yeah, I wanted to do this training because I feel like I have a lot of ideas and inspiration and vision of my potential. And I want to like fortify my capacity to actualize that basically. And I want to, yeah, get clearer. And I feel like there's some like fuzz in my life which could be simplified and kind of just like, yeah, just tuned more clearly so that I can be more of myself, basically, is the way that it's coming out in this moment. And my blessing for the group, what's my blessing for the group? My blessing for the group is that we can all find more time to rest in the infinite ground of our being, and that our actions can be grounded in that place more often, and we can see more of ourselves in that place.
I'm Sam. My pronouns are she, her. I think it's the reason we're here, isn't it? The reason I've signed up is because I think I want to come back more to myself. I feel like over the last year I've drifted away from a lot of my practices, and I just have a lot of energy that I'm holding at this point in time. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. And then my blessing for the group is I hope everyone feels held in this space together.
Hello, I'm Ali. Thank you, Layla. I feel like I've got a lot of work to do in my life. Like I've got a lot to do, and I need to have the capacity to get it done in my lifetime. What can be done in my lifetime? Like a lot of us, I'm sure I'm also holding a little bit from past generations that I really want to sort out in this lifetime. And I became a mother last year, so it feels more urgent to me to figure out how to do that. Yeah, I need a strong vessel to do that. And that's why I'm here. My blessing for the group is, yeah, I think that we weave ourselves and are woven with what's come before and what is still to come. She, they, sorry.
Hi, I'm Tina. My pronouns are she, her. I'm really working with trust right now, trust in myself, trusting my instincts, and also trusting life. And that's calling me to be more patient, which I'm not really very good at. And yeah, I'm excited to see where throwing my intention in that direction takes me. And it feels like quite a full circle moment, because when I first came to meditation, which was like probably 12 years ago, it was from a place of a lot of anger at the world. So to kind of now be in a place of intending to trust the world feels interesting journey. What were the other questions? Am I done? Okay. And my blessing for the group is courage and creativity.
Hi, I'm Charisse. My pronouns are she, her, and I'd say that I am here after experiencing quite a momentous shift in understanding of my own power, I suppose, and knowing that the only way to truly nurture myself and anyone else that might pour out into is by grounding first. So yeah, the blessing I hope to have for myself and the community in general is just a strong union between the material and the immaterial. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Marina, and she, her, and I'm here mostly because I feel I'm losing a lot. I'm wasting a lot of energy into some patterns and stories that I'm really ready to let go, and I'm very aware of them, and I still think there is some traces, and I've been working for a long time, but still there is some traces in the body, and I'm really, really ready to save this energy and to use it for something else. And so I guess I'm here for some clearing up and making space, and mostly. And so my blessing for the group is to find what we are looking for at the end of this year, and to find something else as well, which we don't expect.
Hello, my name is Yanis, and I'm he, him. I signed up for this quite fast, which this usually my pattern to do that, without actually overthinking why I was signing up. But I'm here actually to find out why I'm here, and to just be with what is in this moment. And then, by the end of this year, I'll realize why I was here. But also to go deeper into myself, and I think it's important to share. If you have, some people like to dance or do yoga or meditation, but I think it's also very important to share in a group, because a lot of the time when we do these practices, we don't have a space to actually talk to someone afterwards. So I think even if this is a sharing circle, it's beneficial. And I don't know what else is to come either. So yeah, so that's why I'm here. And my blessing is to be more at peace with yourself, and to be comfortable with things that are not so comfortable as well.
Hi, my name is Yolanda. My pronouns are she, her. Feels very special to be here. It feels like a little prayer to be here. And it's really good because it's only a couple of miles up the road from where I live. And it feels like I've been traveling far and wide for a number of years. And yeah, I've been in a real process of manifesting and unmanifesting, as it would seem. And it's been a really huge transformational time. It's been a challenging time the last few years. And but yeah, I'm here to move deeper into my meditation practice as well. And there is a groove that is a little bit stuck still, but again, just there is something that I'm calling in and calling forth, and I just would like some help being part of a Sangha, part of a spiritual circle, to really be with or accept what there is as a samskara, but also just to sort of jump over that somewhere to just move into the bigger ask of me. There is a bigger ask of me. But just having this as a container as well, because I'm a bit of a free floater, so it can feel really good to come somewhere and be held accountable. And my blessing for the group is to know that life loves you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Blanca. My pronouns are she, her. I'm here because my whole being craved a community that I remember from the immersion in 2019. And I think just the world changed, and at least the way I live my life, I'm just at home so much. Like everything happens from my home, which I love and I always wanted to do because I'm mega introvert. But I also know that it's very nourishing to be in a group like this in real life and get all the hacks and give all the hacks. I think I'm here for the hacks. Just realized that. It's the deep truth of me. I'm here for the hacks. I also last year for me felt like kind of a reset, the way that I want to show in the world what I want to give in like to the world and to people. But I am whirlwind of ideas and projects, and it's all too much. And so the deeper reason here, the other reason to be here, is to get grounded more in practice. My meditation practice is sometimes it's good, and then most of the time it's just non-existent. So having the container where I'm being held and also perhaps held accountable might help with that, just to, even though I'm always alone at home, let all the projects be on the side and just be with myself to settle into really how I want to show up in the world. And my blessing for the group are my hacks. I can't formulate the words for the blessing of the group. I want to say something really deep, but I just want all of us to feel good. Somebody, I think he said, to feel kind of comfortable even in the uncomfortable, find a way to just feel good in who we are.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hinal. I'm she, her. And I am here because I want to really just stop being limited by myself, to stop coasting along at life as well. That's it. And my blessing is that we all see our own inner beauty and just let it shine. Thank you. Yes, she, her.
Hi, I'm Kathy. My pronouns are she, her. Yeah, what do I want to say? I'm flowing with what is. I'm at a kind of a point where there's a big shift of change happening for me. Just logistically, I've been residing in New Zealand for much of the last 8 years, and I feel a calling to come back to the UK, which is my place of birth. So that is unfurling this year. And I think this offering of Layla's is one of the reasons I'm here is because it's your facilitation, and I'm excited to kind of receive some of your wisdom and these teachings. And I think for me, it's like it gives me some element of kind of a pillar of support, that there's some kind of continuity with signing up for this course for a year, that I know there's one thing that I'm doing this year. Don't know where I'm going to live, don't know what I'm going to do, but I have this because this is my home. And so it's just, yeah, having these tools, that I can kind of really work with for myself. And so leading from that, I think my blessing for the group is that these teachings that we work with become a place of nourishment, so that our light is able to shine as we wish it to, and that we really feel, nourished for ourselves. So, yeah, I'm so excited to be part of this community. The people in the room and the people online, which I will kind of dip in and out of those two spaces.
Hello, everyone. I'm Catherine, she, her currently. Yeah, in my life at the moment, I am trying to find more bravery to live in alignment with my desires and with my potential. I've been engaged in mind training of a different tradition for a little while, and I'm really excited to delve into the Buddhist tradition with these teachings. And at the same time, I'm also trying to find my way back into my body. So I'm balancing this body-mind scenario this year, but yeah, I'm 16 months postpartum, so I'm really, still finding my way back to the physical form. So yeah, that's what I'm working with this year. And my blessing for the group is that we find the capacity to expand into all the ways that will enable us to grow. And at the very least, that we expand into love. So, thank you.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Sense. I prefer to be called by my name, Sense, and if that's challenging, any pronoun is fine. I'm here to connect with myself in a circle, to expand, I think, in my heart space, my compassion. I'm sitting with, I've just moved a few months ago to quite a rural setting, and so I suppose in some ways there's some need to be in community. Maybe there's some fear about some isolation, perhaps. And I'm in a space of kind of like relief and release and letting go, and kind of like, and also like, okay, pulling things back together. And I guess, some kind of focal point, some containment to focus, to refocus. Yeah, I'm in like a pivot and refocusing. So a focal point for that. And my blessing for the group is limitless wholeness.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lily. My pronouns are she, her. Since the beginning of the year, which is not that long, some words have been coming up for me, which are softness, openness, spaciousness. And I really drawn to being part of this, to be part of a group and to meet new people and to learn. So I guess my blessing for the group is, yeah, a sense of spaciousness and connection, whether that be with ourselves, with each other, a nice mixture of both. It's lovely to meet you all.
Hi everyone, my name is Soph, she, they, and I'm coming today with a sense of a feeling of confusion, which I've been feeling for a really long time, and really trying to practice holding multiple truths, and also, yeah, stepping more into my power. I really love to hide, and I really want to start hiding in public. So yeah, because I really feel that I isolate myself, and I really want to come back into connection with community people, and also in spaces that I can delve deeper into myself. My blessing for the group is compassion and the unknown.
Hello, I'm Ronée, pronoun she, her. I have a very obsessive mind, and it's very airy, and I have been practicing in different ways to tame it. And over the past year, I've come to learn that creativity is a really big part of that. And for my specific system, it's not like a nice to have, it's a must have. And through that learning, also learned that there's quite a lot of heartbreak around the exercising of my creativity in certain forms. And I think the theme that's kind of run with me for the past year or so has been like crumbling, shedding, a lot of breaking. And I've noticed the methods which I would like ride the waves of change weren't working in the way that they used to. And so I guess I'm here to understand myself away from any like self-imposed identity that will hopefully enable me to fully live my creativity, regardless of the circumstances happening in life, and really allow the bravery to guide me. And my blessing for the group is that we are able to ride the waves of change with grace.
Hi, I'm Zoe. My pronouns are they, them. What is life right now? I am attempting to leave my career of 16 years, which has proven harder than planned at the moment. And yeah, so trying to really open up what I think is available to me and really expand that concept and how I can offer things in the world beyond the very structured kind of career I've had. So lots of fear around money and self-worth and value and all of those things. And I think I have a tendency to just try and confront things and kind of push through a lot of the time. And I'm noticing those patterns of distraction and not being able to focus and too many easy things to grab at. So I know that when I've been in meditative practice before, that provides a clarity and space and an opportunity to feel the grief that comes with those things as well. So that's what I'm looking for here. My blessing is that we can learn to love the ways that we grieve.
Hi, I'm Sally. I use she, her pronouns. Mm, I think what's brought me here is, I guess, a sense of loneliness, like a beautiful loneliness, but also an empty loneliness that sometimes comes through with my practice. And I think I know that maybe the route to getting past that and being more open or expansive, or not really sure of the word, is through a sense of something that's shared. And I think that's part of what I'm seeking, but there's lots that I also don't know. And I think the blessing is that may we be in our power and may we be in our true voice.
Hi everyone, I'm Steph. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm here for a few reasons. Recently, past few years, I've become aware of the fact that there's a lot more to life than I used to think there was. And also, I recently became a mother, so I'm 15 months postpartum. And with that, a challenge that has come to us has been sort of ongoing sleep deprivation. And it's really sort of challenged me. And I guess any ideas I had of, thinking that I was patient or whatever, identity you might have. And I can see that my emotional reactivity and my thoughts are just presenting challenge to me. And I'd really like to work with that because I can almost see there's a few trajectories for me, possibility in my life, and one I don't want to go down. So I'm hoping this space can be supportive of that for the benefit of me and my family. And a blessing for the group is I hope that we can all, I guess, bask in the warmth of the compassion that we can create collectively.
Hey everyone, my name's Letitia or Tisha, Tish, pronouns, they, them, she, her, none. I guess like, what am I showing up with or what am I working with and why am I here? So much. It's kind of hard to pin right now, but I guess like a sense of a deep need to feel into my fullness, full power, full strength. It's been a lot of fragmentation because that's what survival does to a person. And I think I nearly died. I think it nearly killed me. And I guess this is a process of recovering and healing my baseline and finding, reorienting myself towards what my system needs. My system needs access points to the fullness of the world, of deep belonging, deep care, deep reserve, deep resource, and to come out of depletion, which is historically the place that me and my lineage are still battling. So I'm here to fill up my cup, for want of a better term, but also to to resource in a way that has longevity and that can live beyond my vessel, my lifetime, in the hopes of creating significant change just through like love, really. So that's what I'm working with. And I guess like the reality of that is that I'm in a lot of pain right now. I'm feeling quite unwell. That's like a part of my experience. Pretty much every day, like physical, psychosomatic pain. And I often don't talk about it. I've learned to hide it, and I feel like that can't run. Yeah, so kind of wanting to like be seen in suffering, as well as joy and love and all the rest of it. But this is what it is, right? And I think that may lead me into the blessing, which is that we can just show up and honor the fact that we're here, and that's like enough, actually, that we've arrived and that we know that this is a practice and is possible, and there's privilege in that, actually. So remembering and honoring that as a deep, complex self-nourishment that is so old, so old. That's it.
So hello everyone, my name is Eva, and what brought me here is really last year, where a lot of things that I had in my life have fallen apart, and I've realized that I need to work with some of my narrative, which is not the structure that I like to believe, and that I have created some of the the limits, how far I want to go in life, and I want to live slightly differently and find a practice that works for me to work, to create something different that I've had so far. And my blessing for the group is where we had a lot of striving, there's all this striving, so my blessing is contentment, be happy where we are.
Hi. My name's Tiffany. My pronouns are she, her. To be honest, I am kind of sick of my own BS. So I was like, oh, that's still a thing. And I I just like, there's so much noise and limitation, and I know that there is kind of more power to be had, more expression, more love, more connection, more everything. And so trying to kind of understand why I put restrictions on myself and really like allow myself to be seen. So that's that. And my blessing is I hope everyone finds ease, lots of ease. The world is hard enough.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to keep going here with the folks online. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. Hi. Sweethearts. At the break, we'll have to get you in waving. All right, so Rich, you want me to call you Richard? Yeah, okay, you got it. It's a very old friend. Richard, he, him. I am working with deepening the opening of my heart and releasing ego. I invite presence and love to all. And then we have Catalina. I'm Catalina, she, her. I'm discovering the power of awareness, and I'm in awe of this process. Big growth these past few months, and my hope is to continue flourishing and growing. My blessings of joy and love to you all. And Nora. Hi, I'm Nora, she, her. I'm working on holding steady in the container of my body, having enough energy, health, to stay the course with the vision I have for everything I'm trying to do this year, remaining true to myself and the art that I'm making without going into freeze, or when I do, finding ways to move through it. Strengthening my capacity and trust, my blessing for the group. May we be really sweet to ourselves through this training, not in a saccharine way like, oh, you're so sweet, but true soft honey like fierce sweetness. Oh, mic drop, Nora. Oh, wonderful. Okay, everyone. Well, this is just delightful. And or haven't we got a fantastic, haven't we? Yeah, some people are already like, there's people who know people. And then there's people who don't know people who are going to get to know people, and it's so great. Rich, we're going to get you flying over to London maybe for the final retreat. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I'm trying to get my friend over. We were really old friends. Like 30 years? We've known each other for 30 years. So it's really, really an honor. Thank you so much for coming. And of course, thank you all. Not just my 30-year friends, folks that I've met even in the past month in the room, and just everybody. A lot of different communities that I'm a part of flowing into this one. So I'm feeling really a lot of gratitude. Communities that I'm like are adjacent, and then suddenly here, it's like delightful. And so yeah, I want to just invite everyone to take a little stretch. Upseat yourself. Upseat yourself. That's an instruction I'm using from now on. Take a little stretch. Well, how about you can, I mean, obviously the deal with loos is run to the loo whenever you have to. And we will have a break in about an hour, like a proper, like a 10 to 15 minute break. What? Yeah, I'm gonna ask Tiffany, do you know how to turn on the heat in here?
I think it's just turned on the things, isn't it?
Where's the things? Oh, yeah? Oh, really? Cool in the gang. Okay, it's turned into quite a story here. Okay, so mostly just stretching. I feel, yeah, that's something I've always teach yoga asana in here. And when I teach yogasana, it's hot. So it's cold in here now. So yeah, I am worried about that. Would you do me would you mind? I'm gonna text Laura and ask as well, just briefly. We're not taking a break. We are just trying to find the heat. Okay. Okay. All right, folks, make your way back to your seat. Tiffany, if it's not obvious, I actually thought it was up here personally, but hold on, one little check. Right. Do you remember being told in the beginning? We were told everything. Okay, thank you, sweetheart. I really, listen, I think what we should do structurally is if I can deputize somebody each time to just like a person or two to help out, that would probably be helpful. Because classic Layla Sadeghi, like no assistant, we'll just show up, see what happens, and usually I get to the point where I like the limitation of my capacity is like, eh.
Layla? Layla?
Okay.
I don't know who I would even cross you up.
What?
to
Just,
for that.
I just pressed record. I know, me neither. But hopefully I won't get a cease and desist letter. So anyway, so we have the use of the cards, and the cards are really just to support working with the slogans. I am going to send you a recording of my reflection on each one of the slogans. And my original plan was to send them like Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then I thought, no, too much. We should do Mondays and Thursdays. And then I've got it even more confusing. And Mesa, who's in the program and who's also working as my assistant, we'll just have to deal. But now we're going to get them on different days and different weeks. And it's really what it's based on, okay, is that, and I could send you a document that has the dates of when you'll get them, because I know it in advance, because it's based on the slogans, and I'm giving you enough time to work with each of the slogans. And what I realized is, like, for some slogans, 2 days is fine, the first go round, but for other slogans, we need to actually break it down into, like, for the first week, for example, you're going to get 4 recordings: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Okay, and then the following week, I think it's 3, then the following week after that, it's 2. So I'm trying to honor the actual teachings themselves and lump and sort of bring them into weeks where you have thematic weeks where it sort of goes together, and also not to overwhelm your system, that you're just sort of flipping through these teachings in a way. Of course, we know that it's like really easy to forget teachings. Okay, good. It's really ezy to forget, what we're doing. I'm sure none of you ever forget what you're doing practice-wise, but oh yeah, I did press recording. My recording stopped. It started. Yeah, no, thank you. That's good, Rich. Thanks, Rich. It's really easy to forget stuff, but the deck is like a physical thing, and you can put the slogan like on your computer. You can take a photograph of it and make it your screensaver, so you just kind of happen to look at it. So I really wanted you to have some kind of a thing that could help kind of trigger this thing over the days that we'll be working with each one. So that's how the recordings go. Originally when I was doing them 3 a week, the recordings would take us out to August. I think we'll probably end up working into the autumn now that I've spaced it a little differently, but I'm not sure. I have to look more closely because I've only scheduled about half of them so far. Yeah. So at this point, we can look forward to working through the Lojong slogans for quite a while, and just working with the teachings that are connected to each one of the slogans. And when we get to the other side of that, it probably won't be as many I don't know if I'll send recordings, because the other parts are practices that we'll learn in the sessions, and that I'll be supporting you with in the satsangs, right? So I'm calling this the session, and I'm calling our meetings the satsang, okay? And then in those satsangs, there'll be support for all the things that we've learned and how to keep it going and how to kind of fluff it up. I may send some recordings, we'll see, it depends on, but we'll be working with teachings from the other side of the Himalayas. So we're going the Tibet, which is the north side, then we go to the south side into the Kashmiri Valley and into the south of India, and into the tantric traditions that are associated with Trika Shaivism, and also with Shri Vidya, which is a goddess-centered tantric practice. So there's a very particular teaching that I really want us to get to. So it may be that we have to slow down the slogans. It may be that we get to it at the very end. We're going to see, but I'm going to do my best to get to this particular kind of world of practices, so that we have some of that this year as well. And please ask any questions that you have as they come up. Yeah. So we have satsangs. We have the sessions every other month. We have satsangs twice a month. And I wanted to share a little something about how I suggest you approach the satsangs, because we all have lives and we're all like, wait, 2 Sundays a month? Really? And, my suggestion is that if you want to like absolutely go, hell for leather with the program, you just come to all the satsangs. You just like schedule it as though, if you're a teacher, the kind of way you schedule a class, you're like, oh, well, that's there. I just have to go. So then it's in there. There are going to be some times that you're going to miss even if you're doing that, just because you have a life and a wedding, or you have to go to the thing. But, that would be one way. And then the next thing is just to say, come to at least 1 a month. That would be my highest suggestion for people where that your life gets really busy. And you also, some of you have work. I know for me, Sunday evenings, like I had to schedule this and then duke it out with like mystery school and other projects of mine. I have a lot of projects and there's a lot of Sunday night activity. But I also schedule it for 8 p.m. hoping that my friends who have the little ones can hand off to partner for the later part of bedtime or just can complete bedtime before we start. So the idea is that we start at 8 p.m. UK time, and I know that's not handy for anybody. Catalina, I know your kids are a little older, so that's okay. But it's not helpful for folks on the other side. It's going to be a sort of mid-afternoon thing, and that's just kind of, you can just do your best. And of course, you can just schedule Sundays, you just block them down and use them for this. Folks who are coming in from the East Coast and obviously from LA. But that's my big suggestion for satsang is at least come once a month. And if you can, come to all of them and just sit, because we're going to sit together. And I think that's going to really support. And that was part of why when I was working out what the structure of this should be, I wanted to put 2 in a month, not too much, not every single week, where we feel a little like we get that, like gulp, like we can't quite get our breath feeling. It's too much. That we have too many activities kind of feeling, but that it's enough that we can really saturate ourselves and have support for our daily practice, because that's really what we're here to give each other. Yeah. How to engage properly with the material. So you have the Lojong slogans, and you have so many different ways of working with them. And part of what we're learning is what's called spiritual contemplation. And it's a huge part of all spiritual practices. Some spiritual practices have a name for it and they center it in a particular way. In this particular tradition, this is simply called mind training. But the idea is that we have to just let it be a reflection point for our behaviors. And it's really meant to impact thought, word, and deed. So what we think, what we say, and how we behave. And we have instructions that really move toward and more in the direction of our meditative experience, and quite a lot that are in what Trungpa refers to as post-meditation. In fact, there's a whole section of it that's based on that. And we'll go into a little more detail. There's a lot of underlying Buddhist tradition kind of teachings that are embedded in this or are presumed. It's presumed that you understand the context in a certain way. So I'm going to do my best, especially in today's session, to contextualize a little bit so that we have a little sense of the context, and then we can work with the slogans. But the amazing thing is that the slogans arising literally 14th century, I think the original sort of genesis of the whole thing even is earlier. It's in the same era as the tantras. It's sort of around 1000 Christian era. Yeah, really amazing. I mean, that's you know how long ago that is. It's 1,000 years old, and still kind of you read it and you're like, wow, people have always been the same. So the next piece is daily practice. I'm just watching for any questions in the chat box, because I'm sort of checking that I get through all of this. My suggestion is that you develop, if you haven't already got one, a committed daily seated meditation practice. So committed, daily, seated, those are keywords. So I'm not suggesting that there are people use the word meditation to refer to a wide variety of activities. In my teaching ministry, I'm really focusing on a very, very narrow range of practices when I refer to meditation. And that isn't because I think the other people are wrong. It's just how I use terminology. So when I talk about meditation, I'm talking about this seated practice of profound distillation and transformation, by means of which our creative essence and that which is the most fundamental and natural in life rises to the fore systematically and really completely over a period of time. And so I'm talking about awakening practices. I'm talking about the practice to cultivate wakefulness. And I consider it, I always think of it, it's like the ground zero of cultivating wakefulness. And then we could say it rays out into expression. So I kind of feel like we can do all the expressions of the different ways. We can live a very dharmic life. We can have very dharmic activities that we engage in all the time. But it's if we don't put seat the whole thing in the nest of a meditation practice, then I feel like it's we haven't plugged ourselves into the power socket. Does that make sense? So one of my teachers, Pamela Ortega, used to use the analogy. He'd say it's like if you want to vacuum your drapes, vacuum your blinds. Yeah, he used to use this analogy. He'd say, well, you can take the vacuum cleaner attachment that is special for blinds. You go and you can rub it against the blinds. And you're going to get some of the dust will just fall on the floor and some of it might fall into the thing. But if you don't put the attachment on the vacuum cleaner, it's going to have he says, when you put the attachment on the vacuum cleaner, you have a completely radically different effect. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a little bit of like that's how I think of meditation. So, some meditations are grounded in mantra, but like even just the practice of japa mantra, which is the repetition of mantras, they're all very transformative. They all work, they all do things. And each one of us are constitutionally very different. So that means that each of us are going to have a very different experience of the different practices. And each one of us are in a different stage of the evolution of our consciousness into self-recognition. And for that reason, some of us there are people who are walking around the earth who don't need to do anything. Actually, in the tantric tradition, that's called anupaya. They say there's a path called anupaya, which is like no method. It just boom, awake, this kind of thing. But there's also like very elaborate structured teachings in the Tantra on the other side of the Himalayas and on this side of the Himalayas that says like people in this state need this, people in this state need this, people in this state need this. But one of the things that's really beautiful and powerful about these traditions in this part of the tantric world in the high Himalayas in Tibet and in other parts that are a part of that is that they center meditation very strongly. Yeah. So and specifically we're working with the nature of mind. I mean, I call it a mind training and I decided to center mind training this year for a reason. So that's part of it as well. Yeah. So we have now some of us are going to need a little more support. I am available this week to do an evening call, and I'll just probably Tuesday or Wednesday night for somebody who's like, if there's a group that's like, I just want basic meditation instructions, like as though I've never meditated before, then I will make that. And you just need to signal that you want me to do that. I'm going on pilgrimage to India starting on Saturday. So I will be doing satsang call from India, but I don't want to do the instruction for meditation. I prefer to do it in advance, and I will record it and make it available to anybody else who just wants to see it. But so if somebody needs extra support, we're going to come in and give you the extra support. Okay. So you just signal to me one way or another that you want that. Okay. I did say in the sort of blurb about whether, signing up for this, like, well, you don't have to meditate. And I want to say that's 100% true. You can just hang out with us, and do it while we're here together. And then do something else the rest of the time. And I love you and you're free. So you can do whatever you like. And I will suggest to you that if you really want to actually have the experience of mind training, that meditation is necessary, and I say that like through the tradition, like these instructions, part of them are relevant to meditation, and they're not actually relevant to not meditating in a certain kind of way, even though they can seem very relevant and they have big import. Because of course, meditation is just putting in touch with what's always already here. Yeah. Okay. And the final thing is that I want to give us a little bit of nervous system support. I decided to trickle in some of the Fajardo method of biomechanics into this space. This is the nervous system work that I've been doing for the past 4.5 years. It's changed my life. I was in I was always achy and in pain and was having basically a kind of reasonably shitty time physically. Like it was fine. I was I've been able-bodied the whole time, but it wasn't easy for me. And I've experienced a tremendous shift in what my perception is of my physical sensations. And I would love to support this group into starting to, first of all, and I'll just give you the first teaching right now, to treat sensation as change. And then to be able to determine whether the change is a change in our nervous system where we're going more into sympathetic, or are we actually going into parasympathetic, and how to tell the difference. That's my goal for us for this year for that work. So I'm going to give you some very simple awareness practices. It's called grid practice. I'm not going to do that right now, but I'll feed it into the work, and that'll be something for you to work with as we go along. And I may give slight nuances to it and improve it. Satsang is a place for us to come and ask questions about that and work with that. Yeah, is that clear? Yeah. So that's the program. That's what we're doing this year. And of course we do have, it'll be very soon that I ask if you quite seriously, if you're going to come to the retreat, because I'm going to want to get it organized pretty soon. And I'm going to need to know rough numbers. And I'll give you a ballpark price, and I'll do this probably via email and probably through Mesa or probably maybe on the WhatsApp group. A ballpark price, because my idea is that you're going to pay like for the administration, like pay for like some of the organization. Does that make sense? Because it's going to take Mesa some time, and there's going to be like little associated expenses just with me making it happen. And you can pay for, so there'll be a little admin fee on my side, and then you'll just really just be paying the retreat center. And if I can arrange for you to just pay them directly, I may do that. Yeah. So that's, hopefully it won't be that expensive because there's no other price, there's no other cost in there. It's your food and your accommodation of being there. Yeah. So it should be, hopefully it'll be quite reasonable. It's my intention. Yeah, go ahead, Renee.
That's just like going away for like that weekend in December.
Yeah, the weekend in December. So my idea is that we have a chance to have silent meditation retreat together. So that's in silent retreat, we have a lot of silence, and then we'll have a satsang. I mean, that's how that will be. So there will be some sharing, there will be deepening of teaching and experience. But it's going to be structured, and then we will be in silence. That's my idea, because silent meditation retreat is heaven. So I want us all to have heaven together. Okay, all right. Is that all clear about the structure? Do you have any questions about how this thing is going to work and what it's going to be like? No? There's maybe almost question, Ava.
Not right now.
Okay. Formulate and
yeah.
ask later. Yeah. Okay. Anything else burning in the room? Any share or something that needs to be put in the field?
I guess when we meet on these for these sessions, like, are we going to be going through the slogans in these sessions? Like, what's the structure of these ones?
So different. Well, in a way, I could say like, well, I don't know. I don't know yet. But today we have this orientational piece. But you've already just gotten. I mean, we basically just work with the first, like, sort of 3 through 5 of the slogans in that session and that practice that we did. So I'm going to contextualize the slogan practice. We'll discuss the slogan practice. There's also another whole teaching that I was so fortunate to receive last year that very directly reflects my own personal experience of mind and of exploring the mind and understanding what the mind is. And I want to give that to you. So that's another formal Tibetan practice. We're not going to have time for that today. So I want to introduce another practice that comes in the Lojong slogans. Some of you have done this practice before, but I want to introduce it very formally and to the best of my ability this afternoon. So we have practice sessions. So we'll sit together. We'll have there'll be some satsang and sharing, and there'll be teachings in the sessions. And then, of course, I do have plans for us, and I will, now that we're actually, there's at least going to be 10 more people, I think, in the room, I think, next time. So it's quite a big group. A lot of people, for whatever reason, couldn't come on this day. It's good to know there's plenty of room. We might not be in a circle setup. We'll do our best, or we might have layers of circle. There's a lot of ways that we can work it. So we'll figure that out. But what I would say is you can anticipate a range of different practices, sharings on practice, and contextualization in these sessions. And we will sit together in person, which matters, if you can. I know it's rough for folks who are coming from other places, but like, that was part of why I wanted to have as much in person as I felt people could manage this year, with the level of busyness that I know people I'm in community with are experiencing. So, yeah. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Still to get the book and realizing I probably should go back through stuff that you've already outlined to look over stuff. I'm like, so I'm like, I have questions, but I feel like you would have already probably answered them about like the lineage of.
Yeah, I'm gonna just take, so I was gonna start with that. I'm gonna start with some of the basic contextualization, and then we'll go into, and then we'll have a break, and then we'll go into like we'll go into a sequence of practices to really, because I want to give you transmission. I mean, that's really the most important part. Sally Kempton, another one of my great meditation teachers, used to say, you catch meditation. You catch it. It's a contagion. So we think about meditation as like a contagion that the real kind of guts of it. Now, I also hold the point of view that the meditation is also just whatever we do when we sit down and we don't do anything else and we're just meditating. Like, we've successfully meditated by the time we sat there.
That's it. We did it. We set the timer and we sat there for as much of it as we could manage before we freaked out, you know? And that's good enough. That's meditation, you know, but also to really like what meditation is full of and what it orients you to. That there's a contagion in there. So I want us to have that contagion, but I want to give us a little, I'll give us a brief context. Does that help, Charisse? There's some very specific historical details that are in that book and you'll read it and it's easy. Has everybody read Introduction, Forward, some of the people? Yeah, you can read now you'll get into it. So now you can start really reading it. What I didn't want everyone to read it in like, I don't know. I want you to have unfold it like a little magical little petals all year. So we'll see. Okay. We keep losing Catalina, by the way. That's why I keep checking my phone, is because the thermostat's next to the computer. You found that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
The radio is wrong. Yeah.
This one's on.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yes,
Is the link-
sense.
Is the link to the Zoom going to stay the same? for all the sessions?
Yes, satsangs and sessions are all on the same link the whole time. And it should call it, I think it calls itself satsang and session link, or session and satsang link. So that's good. Yeah. We got about 15 minutes. I want to give a little contextualization, then we'll do our break. Sound good? It's like about 10 minutes, probably something like that. We'll look it up. Look at it. I don't want to lose too much time, but I also want you to talk and chill. Okay, so this is, just so you know, in terms of pedagogy, in terms of what I favor, I usually favor what I call, it's the Miles Davis quote is, I'll play it first and tell you what it is later. So I kind of, that's really at the very center of most of the pedagogic heart of my offerings and how I offer teachings and how I share in knowledge. Which is to say that I'm not a big fan of like a huge amount of filling our minds with a whole bunch of like facts and pieces of information, especially in an age where we are literally, we have many of us, especially those of us who are on some of the social media platforms, have created a self that's just this, that knows all this stuff. We have a false self of knowledge. Do you see what I mean? And we have it's like really, we could also say we have a false self sense of security, which is the security of the self that is like so hooked in to the pieces of spiritual flotsam and jetsam we're sort of, you know, kind of allowing ourselves to immerse in, because we're getting all these little boosts to our mood and little micro insights coming from someone else's insight world, a whole bunch of different people's insight world. And so I want to say that there's like a little bit of like, it's not so embodied, but it helps us to get through the day. Kind of energy that comes through all that stuff. So what I'm hoping that we're able to do is to really minimize that stuff and stick really close to transmission and to direct experience and move more and more in that direction. So that's kind of what I'm holding. That being said, it's just gonna be handy to hear a couple of these things. So I'll give you a little bit of information. Yeah. So the first thing is to just situate the Buddhist side. Also, you should know I'm not like formally a practicing Buddhist anymore. I'm a tantric sadhana in the Trika and the Sri Vidya lineage streams. I have two different sort of deity worship, Ishtadevata deity worship practices that I've been given. I have my teacher, who I'm formally sitting with now through these years, the past few years, is an acharya in a Sri Vidya lineage through South India. Yeah. Yeah, but I started here, and this is like what really Trungpa was. In some ways, we could say he was like my first spiritual teacher, because it was when I read Trungpa's book. Like I'd read Sogyal Rinpoche's Tibetan Art of Living and Dying. Some of you have read that book; it's a very famous book. Right when I started, and I'm not going to tell my whole awakening story, but it was really strong, and it was before really the internet, so it was all about books and all about like who could tell me something. But it was Trungpa. When I first read Trungpa's words and Trungpa's unfolding of the Dharma and his student Pema Chodron's unfolding of the Dharma, I was like, these things are the truth. This resonated in such a powerful way for me. So so we can understand that there's different Buddhist streams. One of the streams is, so it goes by two names. The like more respectful and like appropriate name in a certain kind of way is to say Theravada tradition. And it's also called Hinayana, but Hinayana means little wheel. So basically, these are like, it's the closest to like the formal teachings of Buddha that exist. Like, and so it's a whole teaching world. There's many schools that are just really situated in that realm of teaching. But obviously, you know, like any spiritual practice world, it evolves over time. You get whole groups and then they keep innovating. So there's a lot of innovation. I think it's difficult for us to honor the level of innovation and the fact that like spirituality has to change. It just is changing because we are all changing. Anyway, so it evolved into what's known as the Mahayana. And in Mahayana practice, there's a little bit of a shift in perspective. So I want to highlight that because it's going to give us like a few of the streams that we're actually going to be kind of anchoring into to understand what we're being invited to do in Lojong slogans. And then I'll talk to you about what I call paradigm grinding, okay? So the first thing is Hinayana. This is like we're practicing for our liberation, very simply. We're practicing, and this is like the real basic teachings of Buddhism that come through that stream include the three jewels, the Four Noble Truths, and the Noble Eightfold Path. And I want to just say, Google it. Have a little look, just look it up, just so you just have a little familiarization. It's nothing more than that, to just have a basic understanding of what the most rudimentary Buddhist worldview is. Hinayana. But what you would Google is like you could know, like Google Three Jewels, Four Noble Truths, and Noble Eightfold Path. And you can just know that like these teachings and then teachings that are like as close to the original Buddha teachings as are currently taught in the world now still are a part of that practice world. So like Goenka, Vipassana meditation, that is connected to that teaching stream. Yeah. The Burmese mountain school. There's a lot. He, I think, comes out of Burmese mountain school, I think Goenka. So that's the teacher who like made this an astonishing feat actually in the 20th century to establish meditation centers all over the world in such a way that you could literally like pay $5 to sit for 10 days and have your food provided for you. Like it's actually an incomprehensibly benevolent and beneficial force in the world. Whatever you might say, I have no idea what the backstory is. You know, the front stories always looks great. And you go in the back, you're like, whoa, that's like just true in spirituality. It's like, holy shit. What? Where do you say that and do that? I don't know. How do you get together? Anyway. Okay. I just want to check that folks can hear me just fine. How's the sound? Is that okay? Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, if you Google those things, have a little look, Three Jewels, Four Noble Truths, Noble Eightfold Path. If you're not familiar with them, some of you it'll be just a refresher. Oh yeah, that's that teaching, you know? So you just have a little basic sense of it. So the big thing is, that's the practice world that sort of is closest to the original Buddha's teachings, right? Just like 2,500 BC before Christian era, something like that. Might be wrong. I might be giving you a date from the Upanishads. I apologize. I've got a lot of little pieces. And also I don't like, this is not my favorite part of teaching. Just to give you dates and stuff. But you can look that up anyway. So then you have this movement of Mahayana Buddhism. And this is really important for understanding the Lojong slogans. So in the Mahayana practice, Mahayana, the big wheel, see, it's a bit insulting to call it little wheel and big wheel. So definitely it's the Mahayanists that decided that's Hinayana. You know, they weren't like, we're Hinayana, which is why there's this sort of corrective of calling it Theravada in Buddhist practice, I think, through teachers and things. So the Mahayanists are very centered in what's known as the Bodhisattva ideal, the Bodhisattva ideal. And so in the Mahayana practice, the idea is that the engagement with practice is that you are practicing in that pattern to relieve suffering, just in the same way that Theravadins would be, but that it is also to benefit all sentient beings. And so there's a huge emphasis on not just self, but self and other, and all others. And the Bodhisattva, we could say, and I'll talk more about this on the other side of the break, the Bodhisattva ideal is the ideal that we literally like have this commitment to keep reincarnating as a being on this earth, as a human being who can practice these teachings, so that until every last sliver of suffering related to samsara, related to misunderstanding about the nature of reality, has completely dissolved. So it's very much like a salvation-oriented, actually, kind of worldview that says like, we're here and we're here like until it's all done, until this whole thing is done. So there's a very powerful, I want to highlight something right when I talk about that. I want to talk about something that I consider to be important in that, which is that there's a very particular kind of power that comes with really understanding that the subtle energetics of that position of yourself. And I think that's, you know, it seems just, otherwise it can get very, I want to say, good person-y. I'm going to be like a good, this is nothing, this is a very subtle, powerful, energetic position that is one of many positions that you can take up that in your seat of life. I want to put it like that. And I'll say more about that when I get to paradigm grinding. But I want to say that. So that's Mahayana. And then we have Vajrayana. And Vajrayana is Tantric Buddhism. So very much there's different practice worlds. There's some in Japan that I really have to get into. But really the famous schools of Tantric Buddhism, where the ideas of Tantra started to move from one side of the Himalayas in the Kashmir Valley to the other side and proliferate, is the Tibetan Buddhist practice. So Tibetan Buddhist practice, generally speaking, very centered in Mahayanist practices and orientation, and also in Vajrayana, which some people will know like a very central kind of lineage school of Tantric Buddhism is called Dzogchen. Yeah, D-Z-O-G-C-H-E-N. Doesn't matter. You can just know Vajrayana Buddhism. This is Tantric Buddhism. And so when you get into the Tantra, you have where there tends to be a little more like sort of morality-based distinctions in like kind of pure impure distinctions sort of carry on through Hinayana and through Mahayana, where it's like, well, we're not going to do that, we're going to do this, not that, we're never going to do that. In Vajrayana, there's more whatever we do, then whatever is on the table is something that we can then turn into awakening and into enlightenment. Does that make sense? So there's no level of like, there's a much, like we could say like a much more kind of radically expanded engagement with everything, with the physical body, with you know, with yeah, every level of humanity actually. So this is, you know, I would say like if we go to the other side of the Himalayas, a Tantrika would say, you know, well, it's really understanding that there's from the divinity, like we have to understand that like all of reality is made of the same thing, that everything is energy. It's like a fundamental, profound understanding through the tantric lineages. And the invitation is to just be so intimate with it that like we're just simply living the reality of that. And there's lots of practices to wake that up. There's also, this is where we get into very specific practices of installing particular mantras. There's mantric practice in Tantric Buddhism and in Mahayanas, but very strongly in Tantric Buddhism. There's quite a lot of mantric work and work with all different kinds of protective deities. I mean, it is a splendor. And so that's what we'll be sort of dancing between. For me, because I'm a committed tantric sadhaka, you're going to get a very tantric read on Lojong, you know, because that's kind of where I'm coming from in my orientation. But when I first read this, I didn't really understand any of that stuff. So I was coming from a very Mahayana point of view. So you just kind of see what you get, and you'll start to get into the groove of it. Yeah, is that clear?
Can I ask what a sadhaka?
Sadhaka, yeah. Sadhana is spiritual practice, the practice. And a sadhaka is one who does practice. Yeah. Okay. We're almost there. So we have, I want to give you the notion of paradigm grind. So this is, okay. This is really important. Oh my gosh, Molly's here. Oh my God. I told Molly that I might not, that it might take me a minute to find her when she comes in. Okay. So paradigm grind understands that all of the, well, first let's just let's define esotericism. So the exoteric spiritual practices, the more cultural spiritual practices that you sort of identify with as a kind of, you know, cultural tribal group that's practiced and usually in very, very connected to imperial powers around the globe. Right, the exoteric religiosity, mainstream religion. You know, mainstream religion can be very close to the government and can kind of situate itself in belief that connects you to the fabric of unity that is also threaded into imperialist political power. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about exoteric spiritual practices. So these require belief, generally speaking, and they're not direct realization schools. So what I want to say is that all my teaching practices are oriented in spirituality that's more on the esoteric tradition route. And that esoteric tradition route is, I want to say, for me, definitely strongly anti-imperialist and or non-imperialist, and it's direct realization, which it means like you have to see for yourself. Yeah, you have to see for yourself. You have to do the thing to get anything. And because I'm not going to give you, like, there's no dogma here. So that being said, now this theory of paradigm grinding comes from a guy on the internet. Sometimes I fantasize that this is my dream partner. I mean, honestly, they say such intelligent things and I feel so aligned with it, but I have no idea who this person is. This person can be anybody. So I don't really know, obviously. But I found it so useful, and I'm so grateful to this person for having put these ideas out there. Now they're more on the occult side, so it's more magical practice. For those of you who don't know, I can just tell you that I have more than a sideline in magic and spell casting and priestessing. So there's a lot going on in my spiritual practices. But I think that this understanding still holds. Paradigm grind understands all of the worldviews known in the tradition as darshana, all the worldviews and all of the practice worlds and all of the energetic schema of reality that are presented in the different esoteric paths as a language, not as a dogma. So literally, it's like we learn to speak a language, and then we have access to reality that language will grant us, right? We know that if we are, we've all heard the famous example of particular Inuit languages have 40 words for snow, right? It's a very different proposition without a language that wraps itself around the phenomena of snow in a very different way. We have a different access to snow with our language world. In English, where we have the word snow, sleet and ice or whatever, like it's a narrower realm. So the understanding is that the language that we're speaking is going to give us access. We're going to have a very different kind of access. It's going to present reality in a different way, right? We know that it's very hard for us to see it kind of on the back of it because it's usually very intimate with cultures, but to the point, to exactly that point. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So paradigm grind is an understanding that it's not just one way. And this holds with the Lojong slogans. One of the Lojong slogans is all Dharma agrees at one point, which is one of my favorites. It's a very rich one. We'll get into it when we get there. All Dharma agrees at one point. So in paradigm grinding, the understanding is that that we're going to engage in this space in more than one kind of view. And even Trungpa does. Trungpa says that's more Mahayanist and that's more Vajrayanist. You'll read that he uses these terms. It's really more Tantra, he'll say. It's really more Mahayana, But actually, and they are actually presenting slightly different worldviews, but we have to be able to pivot from one to another and speak this language so that we can talk about that. And then this language is going to give us a much better angle to talk about this. And so I consider myself a paradigm grinder. I'm working with paradigms of Avalonian priestessing. I'm working with paradigm of Nandul Shaiva Tantra, Trika Shaivism, and Srivijaya Tantra. And I'm also working with several other things. And the reason so the peril for a paradigm grinder is that you poop around and you don't really get the magic. You don't actually have the direct realization. So now it's incumbent upon you, some of you as practitioners now, through this program, because we have a whole year, there's a lot of time to steep in stuff. Some of you are going to be like, you know what, I just have to go hard Mahayanist. I'm going to have to really get here. And so by sharing this with you, I'm inviting you to become sensitive and to start to track for your own proclivities. Now, it is absolutely true that in the earlier days of spiritual practice, we tend to be more rigid of mind and of thinking about practice. And in some ways we could say that's necessary because we need a little more to kind of hold the thing together, because we're basically and so we got scaffolding on us and there's little people in there and they're tearing out the walls. I mean, that's the early, right? Am I right? I mean, the early days of spiritual practice. That's what it's like. It's like we're fucking getting torn apart. So we need some scaffolding so that the building stays up. And then, you know, since somebody talks to us and we're a little bit like a robot, you know, we get a little tight, you know? So even some of you may have felt like as I introduced paradigm grinding, like, ooh, like that doesn't sound like maybe it would lack depth or that it would be just this. It's not dilettantism. And here's what I think is at the heart of it for you and what I want to put on the table before we take our break. What your ability to paradigm grind is going to be deeply resting in the strength of your will to awaken. Because if you're bringing that strength, that like, I don't care, I want my heart to open. This heart has got to open. If you rest your choices of pivoting and doing practices, multiple practices from different points of view on that, then the magic will happen. You are guaranteed success. But if you do it like, does this give me what I want? Does this give me what I want? Am I having a good feeling with this? It's curtains. It's all over. That's just never going to work, right? So I wanted to put that forward because we have a little complexity in our group because you haven't come to, you know, the temple, you know, we're not at KTD up in Woodstock, New York, learning formal, you know, Buddhist teachings in a formal Buddhist context. And I'm working with Buddhism because it holds this Mahayanist point of view. I really feel that the Bodhisattva principle I feel it's going to be so beneficial for us to explore it together. And obviously I could just be like, let's just hang out and talk Tantra all day long. It doesn't give us the same purchase on the actual energetics of our actual togetherness. It gives a different purchase and it's still very liberating. But I think there's a flavor of this liberation that can really, really, really lift up. So that's why I'm presenting it that way. Now we have 5 minutes past 4 in this time zone. And that means it'll be 5 minutes past 11 for Nora and 5 minutes past 8 for Rich. Yeah, good. Okay. So, and Catalina, it's 5 past 5. So what I want to say to each of you is let's go until 15 minutes past. So that's like 11 minutes. Bathroom, gab amongst yourself, stretch, get out a mat, do a few poses, put the mat away. You have a minute, okay? Yeah? Okay, great. And then we'll pick right up. And obviously, if somebody wants to say hi. Okay. Can I also deputize everybody in the room to remind me to hit record? Because things will happen. But you didn't miss much. Ava asked the question, will it be guided meditation in my beginner's intro meditation? And in a way you could say, yes, it will be, because I will guide you a little bit to help you. But when I teach meditation, usually I teach you how to do it yourself. And so we have this weird thing that's happened because of the interwebs, that we have like now this culture of people who like, there's like, I meditate, but like actually like always listen to someone guiding them through a particular some kind of an experiential or visionary or something. And that means that if they don't have that, they find it impossible. They couldn't just sit there. They couldn't sit with themselves. And so because this is really formal practice, the invitation is not to go and listen to support. So we're trying to find the support that's within. And there's plenty of it. So that's the invitation, and that's what I will share.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. I suspected this was the case.
Yeah. 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 And I want to clarify, and also that's a part of our orientation. We want to become incredibly independent beings who are able to then do what we really want to do. It seems really simple, but actually it's really much more complex, I think, you know. Okay. Any other questions or shares? I'm going to repeat what you say, Allie, just to make sure that folks on the recording can hear. You were going to ask something or share? I thought you were. I heard that. That was just a sign. Okay. All right.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Ava.
So when you were giving the kind of orientation just now, you spoke about the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana.
Vajrayana, yeah.
Vajrayana. But you seem to speak a bit more about the Mahayana. Is this like more of a Mahayana text or anything like that, or?
It's just that I think, okay, so for two reasons. One is that a lot of the people I know in this room have been in some kind of a tantric study with me, one way or another. So there's some exposure to the other side of the Himalayas at the very least. I want to say that listen, a text is, I'm going to go with Roland Barthes here, you know, it's like a text is a text and it can be read from any number of points of view. And really the text only comes alive in the heart and in the mind of the reader. So that you could say that like, that means that like, if you are a tantrika and you are very influenced by the Tantra Darshana, and also that you have various realizations that come through that stream, then the text is going to read very tantric to you. But if you're somebody who's coming from more of a Mahayana stream, or maybe even from a different stream altogether, it's going to then have a different tone. And I think this is just the nature of texts. Trungpa literally uses the words, he'll say in a slogan, like, this is very Mahayanist, and this is very Vajrayanist. He says that specifically. So, you know, he's, you know, obviously the highest level kind of practitioner, very articulate, a lot of huge range of practices that he was both exposed to and also trained to then be able to share with others. That's the seat that he was taking in his teaching lifetime. So for him, there's both. And what I have found specifically is that on the surface, you have a training that is going to give you like really the basics of how to like get started with a spiritual life. It can be, and I say that for a beginner, it's like it's like a bit like a weed whacker. It's just go around the borders and like kind of claim, I don't whack any weeds, don't do that. We love weeds, but you get the idea. Imagine like you know what? It's a big uprooting of all the invasive species that are non-indigenous. Let's put it that way. That's maybe a better metaphor. Like it's going to uproot a bunch of stuff. And in the way that a beginner, like I said, there's a bit more, do this, don't do that. You know, like I can't tell you how many slogans, probably like half the slogans start with the word don't. That actually is really helpful. But what I've also found is that inside, and this is, you know, long-term mystics really know about this, that like you read a text that you start at the beginning of your practice world, you read it 30 years later, and it's actually this very refined series of energetic instructions. Because really the more sort of experienced practitioner is really looking more and more at the energy patterns themselves and able to see the subtle underlying dimensions and be invested in that as a way of manifesting literally jewels, as a way of manifesting the jewels of wisdom of the heart. And so this is that too. And that's part of why I wanted to share it with a group this year. It was nobody was like, you should teach that. You know, it was really like, because you can kind of see it's like a bit, it's a book that lives by my bed that I sleep with often, that is dog ear, you know, it's like all soft on the corners, you know, it's a hardback, but it's like super soft because I've spent so much time with it. So that's where this is coming from. Answer the question?
Yeah.
A little bit?
Yeah, I guess what you're saying is that it's written like with awareness of these different strands, basically.
Yeah, for sure. So Trungpa Rinpoche was a reincarnated kind of tulku, like a high teacher who was taken from his family home as a child and brought up in the monastery. As this particular teacher, a lot of the people who were teaching him knew the teacher. Do you see? Mm-hmm. So, and you can read his autobiography; it's really interesting. But he was he received all the rigors of training through his entire life that were appropriate to somebody who was going to spend his life in a monastery and be a high-level teacher and be a reincarnated tulku and all these different things. So he was an adept at the Mahayana practice and at the Vajrayana practice completely. So he's got all of that in his heart and in his mind when he gives his commentary on the Lojong. Now, I'd have to actually do research to determine what the practitioners of who wrote the slogans out, and it's in the book, but where they were situated, what was going on practice-wise in Tibet at that time that they would have been teaching from. That much I don't know. That I do know that it's a 19th century teacher. So I've got another translation of the text that I'm also going to be referring to in my little commentaries that I'm going to give the little audios that you get to listen to, which I, by the way, recommend you just listen to in the morning. You know, it's like a little mini micro satsang in the morning. I'm trying to make them pretty short. So far, the longest one goes on to like 14 minutes, but most of them are like 7 minutes, something like that. But this is a reference, and this is the commentary that Trungpa studied when he was, you know, in the seminary, so and in the monastery as a kid. I presume that they study this like as an adolescent or something, you know. I would think it would be that basic in that world. That's just a guess. But it's very also very illuminating. Now, this is a very, very famous Dharma teacher, Jamgon Kultru. Yeah, Jamgon. I want to make sure I pronounce it properly. Oh, they haven't got the umlauts. Jamgon Kongtrul, because the umlauts make it a little different. Whatever. I'm not pronouncing it very well. Jamgon Kongtrul was a 19th century teacher and wrote this commentary on the Lojong. And it's clear that a teacher at that level will have had both all those practice streams, because it's, you know, after the advent of the Tantra in Tibet. And of course, it's also very informed by the Pun indigenous shamanic visionary practices. That's also a part, like it's a bit part and parcel of the Tibetan Buddhist world, is that there's an indigenous kind of basically practice of land magic, very similar to priestesses of Avalon, very, you know, all these sorts of streams of, you know, the original people on the land doing the thing before a kind of people came in and said, no, do this. And that's also understood to be present in all the teachings and is very much a part of like how the Tantra ideation is animated in the Tibetan world. Does that make sense? Okay. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, Charisse.
Those who, what would you say the relationship with the different, I'm using the wrong words, so many words, the people that like.
Charisse wants to know the relationship between the people who.
I'm trying to allow a different perspective from the one that I know, but
Yeah.
the way I'm relating to this
Yeah.
is like the Catholics having a different view or
Yeah.
way of to the Seventh-day Adventists.
Yeah, she's comparing the different Buddhist schools to what she knows happens in the expression of Christianity, where you have Catholics and you have like Seventh-day Adventists and different kinds of Protestants, basically.
But
Sure.
yeah, I feel like it's like even in doing that, it's slightly reductive, and I'm keen to not to gain a better understanding of the relationship that each of these schools of Buddhism might have with each other.
I mean, it's all. I mean, you're gonna have to. I really have to say, you're gonna have to talk to a Buddhist scholar, talk to an indigenous person who is doing missionary work and like in communication with other schools.
Yeah.
I know various things about the communication between different schools, but nothing that I feel like I want to share. It's if you go in a rabbit hole, Google and see what you can find, about like how do Buddhists relate to each other. I'm sure there's some Buddhist warfare in there. I mean, I know there have been Buddhist wars. That is a historical fact, but like, how the Tibetans regard the Theravadins in Burma, I don't know. Burma, how do they hang out? I don't know. I don't know. But there will be doctrinal differences, and I probably think there are some schools that are super rigid and are like, that's just wrong and you won't get anywhere with that. And then other schools that are going to be like that. In Tantra, generally speaking, the understanding is, yes, that's true. And if you look at it this way, this is where you're going to get. And this is also true. And this is also true. And Tantra tends to go super inclusive. It's like, oh yeah, it basically like eats everything. Because it says anything, everything, every experience is a portal to enlightenment. That's the fundamental difference. It doesn't say, oh, well, you only get enlightenment if you do exactly these things. This is the formula for enlightenment. It says anything, everything is a portal for enlightenment. So that means if you do the worst thing in the world, according to these ethics over here, this morality over here says never do that. That'll just cause this and this and this. In Tantra, it says, well, it'll either cause that or you'll wake up. I mean, we don't know. That's like a generally speaking. Yeah. Does that help?
Yeah, it's helpful. Like I've always seen myself as a pluralist instead of an evangelist, and evangelist is more like this way, which can be helpful
Yeah.
for people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm experiencing what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like pluralism in many different ways.
Yeah, it's lots of different ways. And it's right here in the Lojong slogans. I can't remember which number. All Dharma agrees at one point. So we'll really get a chance to explore that when we start to work with that particular slogan. And I'm telling you, energetically, that one is so rich. It's like, I love it. All right. Any other things before we turn to a little practice? Okay. All right. So I want to begin. It's a little bit practice and a little bit explanation. So I'm going to give a little précis. I want to talk about some terms that are very heavily featured in this mind training that we're just really going to come to grips with. And the first term is bodhicitta. Bodhicitta. And I'm going to give this to the folks in the thingamajig, in the Zoom room. So bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, has anybody heard this word before? Yeah, this is like a very common word, and it's very Mahayanist Buddhist term. This is very common in that kind of stream, where the idea is that you are practicing the bodhisattva ideal. You may have taken a bodhisattva vow. But bodhicitta is essentially like, there's a lot of ways that it's been translated to me, but I would like to present like what I consider to be maybe for our work, the most useful way to understand this word, which is bodhicitta is wakefulness. Now, bodhi is like awake, and chitta is like mind, but it also refers to your feelings. So the word chit or chitta is consciousness, also used to refer, so there's multiple meanings, right? Sanskrit, never one meaning. And there's technical reasons for that. But just to give you this, bodhi, awakened, same root that gives rise to the word Buddha, the awakened one. Yeah, bodhi, this quality of awakeness. And then chitta is both consciousness. We could say bodhicitta is consciousness awake to itself. You could also say, another way I've heard it phrased is bodhicitta is the awakened heart. And now here it's really important to say that when I use the word heart in this context, pretty much every time I talk about the word heart, I'm using Cynthia Bourgeault, the great Christian mystic's definition of heart, which is that it's the organ of spiritual perception. So Cynthia Bourgeault, absolutely fantastic mystic. She's like maybe one of the great non-dual Christians. She's very wonderful. So she describes the heart as the organ of spiritual perception. And I think that really, if you understand that that's what's meant by the word heart, then the entire proposition starts to open up in a lot of texts and a lot of writings and a lot of mystic tradition paths, I think. So awakened heart, meaning awakened organ of spiritual perception, but like the root chit consciousness, bodhi, awake, wakeful. So it's wakefulness. Wakefulness has this, I want to just say a few things about it. Wakefulness is the increasing value of clarity, stability, and luminosity. I would say that's really what wakefulness is. And when I say increasing predominance, I mean that through these practices and through efforts and through just simply also through desire, maybe most of all through desire, I think that's not centered enough. Honestly, it's something that arises because we want it to happen. And because it is what we are, it has to happen if we really want it. Now, of course, we know that a lot of spiritual practice is simply the reverse engineering of a lot of stuff we do every moment that we're not spiritually practicing. And that's part of why the mind training is meant to work on like all firing on all cylinders. Let's have it. Let's go. So that we really get it across the board. But bodhicitta is a word that cultivate. And we want to say, I'm going to use the word also, it's a cultivation. So we can think of ourselves through practice and through our engagement with teaching. We are cultivating particular dimensions of experience. And we're cultivating them so that they ultimately begin to just completely pervade all experience. And so we start to see that we have all these different experiences, but they're all resting in a common holding. They're all being held in the sea of wakefulness. That is what reality, that is the key and soul characteristic of all reality is wakefulness. I'm using that word. That's probably next year I'll be like, bad word, let's use a different one. That's just how I roll. That seems right for this year, and it was good for last year and the year before, so who knows, it might stick around.
You defined it so well, but I didn't get it. The increasing, I lost it. Wakefulness is the increasing.
We'll have to see where it is on the recording, so we can just play it back. I'm like, don't ask me to say something I said 5 seconds ago. Wakefulness, the increasing value of clarity, stability, and luminosity in every experience, in the experience, because the experiencer is wakefulness. The experiencer is not separate me. The experiencer is wakefulness, not just the experience. Oh, the experiencer is not separate from the experience. And the experiencer is not separate from the means of the experience. So this is, very fundamental teaching. But listen, I can just say it and it's like a hobbity bibbity babbity. It's like a bunch of information. The only thing that's useful about it is to realize it. It's like the only thing. The only utility is in realization. You just put that like right on the front. So I asked you to bring something to the altar, and you can bring it next time, or you can just make something at home and have an altar. I would say if you don't have an altar, a nice idea to create one, or create one maybe just for this. If you have like a bunch, some people work with like a lot of altars. I have several in my home, but I have a main altar, and you may want to put something on the main altar or adjust the main altar to signify this working. I actually have postcards still that advertise this program. If you want a little postcard, you can take it home and it can go on your altar just to kind of hold a little of this intention and this work and this community and all that stuff too. Obviously you have your slogan cards as well. Physical anchors can help. And we're really looking to examine our experience so that we can taste that wakefulness. So we have the ripening of bodhicitta. So I just want to say that. I also want to center what I call like wakefulness. One of the things I think it's also, because a lot of spiritual practice is the engagement with longing. And of course, one of the first moves we do as spiritual practitioners is to begin to embrace our longing and stop trying to push it away. In fact, I would say the moment of awakening for many people is the moment where we simply like drop our resistance to our longing and let it start to just rise and really hear it and taste it and know it. And then, but that longing can also be something through the habits of and the distortions of the mind can also be something that then starts to like situate wakefulness, awakening way out here and where I am over here. Does anybody perceive themselves in that light? Like I'm here in this seat and then being really awake is over there. Anybody? Yeah. And also I want to say like some of us, some of those older people have sat in spiritual practice worlds where there's so much concern for the gradations of awakening. And for like, well, that's a really awake teacher. And that's like, and we're like not awake and the teacher's really awake. Is anybody familiar with that paradigm? But like, I want to say like, I want to engage with it as though it's just the thing that's here. And my sense of it is it's just simply, it's almost like you're a certain kind of a sponge and you're sat in a kind of a liquid. And just whatever kind of sponge you are, some people it's like you soak up a lot of it really fast. And some people it's going to take a little bit longer. Like for me, like fucking ages, it takes a long time. But people think also they want to have this powerful awakening experience. And they want to have this, they want to have this like, we want to feel better. We want to feel better. You know what I mean? It's like, we want to feel better, and what happens in what we construct in awakening through not feeling good is very much like a kind of very separate from us kind of thing. But what I want us to do is to start just noticing wakefulness all the time. Just notice it. We're just noticing that even right now, there's a wakeful quality to reality right now. See, the other thing is that we personalize it. Like, I'm going to be awake. I'm awake. I'm an awake teacher. That's an awake teacher. That's not an awake teacher. You know, it's crazy. His wakefulness is just what is here. It's what this all is. And now we do these cultivations, and we could treat every cultivation, every choice we make, like every time we like practice a Lojong slogan, we could also think of it as an act of devotion. That we're devoting ourselves to this wakefulness, so that because we love it. And here's another thing. We're going to have to learn how not to separate ourselves from what we love. You know? Because if we want it really with the grieving, it's so much, to me, grieving is so connected to that. You know? It's so connected to a deeply ingrained habit to separate ourselves from what we really love. So I'm just sitting here, just inviting this, you know, moment for us to like, even like let the word roll around in your mind a little bit. Bodhicitta. Awakened heart. Awakened presence. Wakeful presence. And folks are writing down, and I think it's good to take notes. I'm an obsessive note taker myself. I just have to like write everything, but I'm also not paying attention to that. It's some way that I have of channeling. So I trust you. And I also really encourage you to just right now, even as the pen is moving, you know, the ink is sort of spilling out of the tip of the pen and the hand is moving and there's all this thing that's happening, to be in the wakefulness of it. And yeah, you see, now the quality starts to rise. Here's Catalina. The quality starts to rise. And that's part of what's beautiful about being in satsang together. Come into, on the other side of the Himalayas, we call it Kula. On this side, yeah, satsang, the Sangha. Inside this wakefulness, we could say there's a force, and it is a force to be more awake. So I think also when I think about the bodhicitta principle that you'll hear so much about from Trungpa and probably other sources, who knows what we'll get into through the year, but we have like, there's this force inside it that like wants to just grow, that it actually wants more of us to be in self-recognition. There's an invitation inside bodhicitta, and it's not like an invitation like, I'm going to now formally invite this part of myself. It's like an urgent spilling invitation that just sort of like, it sends letters out of its own accord. It's like that scene in Harry Potter where all the invitation letters to Hogwarts comes, you know, the uncle's trying to prevent Harry from getting his letter to come to Hogwarts. And so it just comes shooting out of the chimney. It's like that. It's just like shooting out of the chimney, shooting out of this fireplace. So the way that bodhicitta is spoken about is so precise and so luminous in this Lojong slogan teaching. And it's very important for us to understand this as we sort of move into these practices. It's written about very clearly as well, so you'll get more than just me talking about it, which is great. They talk about ultimate bodhicitta and relative bodhicitta. We could say the absolute and the relative. Absolute bodhicitta or ultimate bodhicitta. Ultimacy and the absolute, pretty much interchangeable terms. Absolute and ultimate and relative. And I'm so delightful to come, you know, after a few years, pick this up again and see, oh my gosh, one of the first teachings that you get in here concerns this distinction. And it was so important in some of my really fundamental tantric studies from other sadhanas as well. And I want to just lay it out that that we're going to be working, we could say we're just working on two veins. And we're also trying to be able to track for the distinction that we experience, or the distinction that we understand in the realm of the absolute and the realm of the relative. Yeah. So I'm going to phrase it, I'm going to give you the general, and then we'll go more specific to these teachings. The absolute or the ultimate refers to the dimensions of existence wherein there is no opposites. It's non-polarity, which is to say the fundamental characteristic of absolute reality is a joy that has no opposite. In Sanskrit, they call that ananda. Yeah. So it's just important to understand that there's the principle, we could say it's the ultimacy principle of all of these understandings of reality. In ultimacy, there's a dimension where the distinction, there's a lack of distinction in polarity of opposites. Yeah. Which is to say that the opposite, what occurs as opposites to the relative mind appears as made of exactly the same stuff in the reaches of ultimacy. And now that sounds very like abstract and like we have to be really special, but it's quite perceivable. It's actually quite perceivable. So one of the things I want to invite you to is just to like make space for the ultimate. Make space for the absolute in your life. Because some people actually gave blessings that were entirely based in this concept. Not conscious of this concept, but like it's actually very natural, I think, to us. So in the ultimacy principle, there's the need to anchor ourselves in the infinite so that we can unfold meaningfully in the relative, in the finite. And that would, I'd say, is a great way to think of it. It's like, okay, well, so a lot of distortions in spiritual practice worlds come when we try and make the rules of the absolute apply to the relative in this kind of very rigid way. Well, it's really like this. And then we try and disappear the natural tensions. We live, and this is, the tantras really show us that we live in, we could say like a nested, multivalent reality. And that wherever you are sitting in that valency, whatever degree of density you are seeing through is going to determine your perception of it. Does that make sense? And it never says there's no morality there. Yes, wow. Here we go. It's my dad. Sorry, I had the phone out here because I was tracking with Catalina and I didn't realize I turned it off when I went out and I didn't turn it back off. Dad, let's send him a blessing. Let's send him a blessing. I'll tell him you all sent him a blessing. He'll be like, what the fuck were you doing? Seriously. I don't want to talk about that right now. I'm sure he'd say that. I'll say, well, all my students sent you a blessing. I don't want to talk about that right now. Sense of humor. There's I'll get to exactly the point of this that I wanted to get to. Misunderstandings around like trying to make the rules of this sort of way of like this perspective of reality apply to this perspective of reality. And what's incredibly elegant about this is it just gives you very, very clear kind of roots to take and understandings. We have some slogans that are meant to open your experience of ultimacy, because ultimately what you are is the ultimate. And then we have roots that are meant to help us handle the relative in such a way that we don't always block our route to the ultimate. That we're not constantly just, fogging up the lens and cluttering up the field for ourselves. And the suggestion is that when we're able to do that, and we start to have actual skill at that, that not only does our bodhicitta rise, like we get, then the bodhicitta flowers brightly in both domains. But like through more and being more in touch with the ultimate, we get more relative bodhicitta. In other words, we're sort of more, we kind of understand that there's nobody that we're looking at that's not made of the same stuff that we're made of. And it's like when I say made of the same stuff, I mean energy. I don't mean like cells. We're both humans, like not even at that level, like more fundamental. And it's really a teaching, like, because we understand that this is the ultimacy, we want to treat it with a certain level of respect. It's just natural. But then on the relative side, it's like, well, look, if we just treat things with more and more respect, we're going to that lens opens. And actually the energy, as energy begins to flood, as our perception of reality, it floods our sense gates in such a way that our sense gates are completely transformed. Literally, our perception of reality is transformed. The workings of our body, Tantra is famous for this complete reconfiguration of the subtle energetics of the body. That we don't have subtle energetics if it's not in this tradition without Tantra. You see? So we understand that there's like a huge, we're just literally remaking ourselves at every level, from the densest layer of consciousness, which is physical body, all the way out. And it works really across all these spectrums. So we have the difference between ultimate or absolute bodhicitta and relative bodhicitta. And so in ultimate bodhicitta, we have just simply, and I'm going to just see if we can tune to the transmission right now. So we just also are going to learn how to meditate without making like a whole drama about it with the seed or anything like that. That's also part of what we're doing. Even though we need to make a little drama sometimes. And then sometimes we do it just because it's fun. And I mean drama over the seat, not like drama like, Jerry Springer or something. So, okay. We have right now, we can just like ultimate bodhicitta was a little bit of what we were working with when we first came in today. We can say like, okay, we're going to start to just have this perception that there's a dreamlike quality to our perception, to reality, we could say. That none of this is really fixed, is it? Like if you kind of just look around, that there's something, and it's not dreamy like, it's like cozy dreamy. It's more just, it's dreamy in that it's just, its fundamental character is not disclosed. Like if you look at that table and just ask the, see if you can get the table to tell you exactly what it really is. It's like almost an absurd thing to say, but it will just directly tell you, It has all that tableness, and then inside the tableness is maybe some bambooness, and then bambooness is maybe like earthness, and then earthness is really like cosmosness, and then cosmosness is really like what? So we're just starting to like step into a little bit more of an expanded field of perception. And you can see that naturally, in order to get there, there's all of this working of understanding what's known in the Buddhist tradition as interdependence, which is that like everything is nested inside everything else. I mean, that's like maybe my best definition of interdependence right now. We could say it like this: everything is the cause of everything else. Everything is the effect of everything else. And it is impossible to separate occurrences from one another. There's no place where that unity ends. And then in relative bodhicitta, it's really also about being able to I would say in many ways, in the deepest way, relative bodhicitta, the practice and the kind of becoming keenly open in the domain of the relative, has a lot to do with our ability to experience the tensions that are natural to polarity without just throwing all of our toys out of the pram. Do you know what I'm saying? And what we're invited to do through those relative practices is to begin to get very, very, bring a lot of ultimacy right to the place where we're about to throw that toy. So this is a great expression for folks in America. Richard, I have to tell you this. I have to get used to calling you Richard. They have this wonderful expression where they're like, if you've probably heard it because you know a lot of British people, because you can't throw a rock in LA without hitting a British person. But there's this expression like, that like if somebody gets really upset, they threw all their toys out the pram, which is a baby stroller. So that's the expression that I'm using. So yeah, you got to really it's like really bringing all your attention to the point where and actually it's a point of collapse. It's a point where you collapse into some very delusional narrative about the nature of reality. And you become no longer available to the astonishing creative vitality and absolute flow of awakeness that is always there too. It's actually made, the tension is made of it. And then we decide this tension really means this, and then it only means that. And that's when the mind has really narrowed our prospects. Yeah. So relative bodhicitta. So I'm just encouraging that are you catching that we're practicing while I'm laying this out, but we're really practicing. We're really attuning to the energetics, yeah. Okay. And then the next one that I want to kind of bring forward is the shunyata principle. The shunyata principle. So shunyata, and by the way, I want to mention that in the cards, I've kept true to Trungpa's translation, and he doesn't use in this book any diacritical marks. And if you know Sanskrit has letters that are different and sounds that are different from the ones that are pronounced in English language, Roman letters, I think it's called. And so he just uses like SH, where it might be, it also in Sanskrit could be, and it's just not, there's not a distinction. In Shunyata, it would be S with a accent aigu, Shunyata, UN, and that's a transliteration from the Devanagari, which is the script that Sanskrit is associated with. Okay. So I'm gonna follow that, but I will also try and give you diacritics like when I can. Sometimes, I don't know. I'll do my best just to have that little detail. So the Shunyata principle, Shunyata means, okay, some people will say it means void. Other people will say it means emptiness. And usually the word that's used in the Trungpa practice world is emptiness. Yeah. And so this is really important to start to cultivate an attention. So on one hand, we're cultivating attention to ultimacy and so that it's supporting our workings in the relative, in the polarities and in the natural tensions of this expression of reality that in physical reality. And then we also have the Shunyata principle, which is starting to notice that like there's a qualitylessness even inside everything. So we start to look around and we start to be able to kind of almost see that there's this kind of amazing indeterminateness to everything. And the reason it's in everything is because it's a layer of our actual self. So this is getting a little technical in the Tantra, but it's like in Tantra you have 5 layers of the self, and one of the layers is called Shunyata. It's called the void or called emptiness. Now, you're going to start, there are some distinctions between like what a Mahayanist would say and a Trika Shaivist would say about what is the essence of reality, because there's many Buddhist schools that will say emptiness is form and form is emptiness. And actually emptiness is what reality really is. And the Tantric will say emptiness is a dimension of the absolute. So there you have that. This is technical, it doesn't really matter. What's really important is for us to begin to kind of tune right in. So I'm inviting that right now, that we start to tune in to this. Like if we go as far as how dreamlike reality is, we can also go into its emptiness. And even if we say this table is table, that there's a way that the table is also doesn't have any essential qualities. We really look. We could say the same thing of our thoughts. So you could think any thought at all. And I invite you to just think all the thoughts. And see that there's this sort of we could call it almost a not thingfulness, like a not thingfulness to everything. We're just tuning into shunyata. Okay, Catalina's saying goodbye for now. She'll catch up on the recording. Thanks. Shunyata principle. And it's considered very important that we start to track it. So this is another one to start to track. So if you're like, I have no idea what she's talking about, you can just do this. You can just go like almost like you're going to tap on your own awareness. This is a good thing to do. This is a little contemplative tool. Is you kind of go shunyata. Shunyata. And it's a very good contemplative tool to use that. If you get a thing that is presented to you and you just have no understanding, there's no reference point for it. First of all, if you just literally go right into the sense of no reference pointfulness, bless you, if you go right into no referenceness, you're there anyway. That's amazing. Is if it starts like the mind has to sort of swims. Then if you go just sort of like right under the wave, you've pretty much got shunyata. There's no place where it is not. Yeah. So the shunyata principle, we're tuning into that. And then the bodhisattva principle. The bodhisattva principle. And a bodhi, so we have wakefulness. Sattva means like, sattva is like purity. So like the purely awakened, right? Something like this. But really a bodhisattva refers in these traditions, Mahayana traditions too, they often will talk about the bodhisattva ideal, which is like ideally you are able to have every single action you take be to serve the awakening of others. That would be the bodhisattva ideal. And so the bodhisattva principle is the principle that there is an untapped capacity for service inside each of us, an untapped capacity to serve reality and to serve the parts of reality that relieve suffering. So very, very specific. I call it, sometimes if you think like I could maybe define bodhisattva principle as the principle of profound altruism. It needs the adjective profound, because it's not sort of simple altruism, and it also reaches into some very like beautiful energetics as we start to get into it. And there's some very specific instructions. But the understanding is that somebody who would be studying these Lojong slogans would have taken what's known as a bodhisattva vow, which is like, I vow that I will find a way, I will become skilled enough at dying, that I will come through another human being lifetime vessel until every sentient being is free. Which is to say, until every sentient being is no longer in a state of suffering. And the suffering that they're talking about is samsaric suffering, which is the suffering that then says it constantly seeks pleasure and novelty, and constantly seeks to avoid pain, and constantly is seeking to affirm a very separate sense of self. And it results in what's known in the Buddhist tradition as dukkha, which is this samsaric suffering. So the tantric proposition is that samsara, when there's a sufficient wakefulness in the system, samsara transforms into a spiral of awakening. That literally samsaric experiences, what we would call samsaric experiences themselves, we could say experiences that appear to generate suffering. From the tantric point of view, even that suffering is actually a deepener of awakening. Does this make sense? Mm-hmm. So we have this invitation to engage. So I'm going to invite you each to begin a contemplation of of like, are you, first of all, just like, what is the Bodhisattva call sound like to you? Do you hear it inside yourself? When I first heard of it, I was like, it felt like coming home. I was like, somebody's got a name for what I feel inside me. This sort of, and also, how do you want to shape it for yourself? How do you want to relate with your care for this world and for one another? Yeah, go ahead, Lily. I'm going to repeat what you say.
I guess what just arose for me then.
Lily
was the
said what
idea-
arose for her then
was the idea of that dissolving separateness.
was the idea of dissolving separateness. Yeah, beautiful.
So although we're talking about others,
So that we're talking about others,
actually simultaneously,
actually,
it's me and everyone else.
simultaneously, it's me and everyone else. Yeah, beautiful. Hmm. Go ahead, Charisse.
A question about Bodhisattva.
Question
and
about
the suffering
Bodhisattva.
of sentient beings. Is there an understanding? Is that mainly anchored to this earth?
That main anchor to the earth. I mean, that might be slightly above my Buddhism pay grade. But I will say this, it is considered that one of the things that you're invited to really deeply contemplate and come into relationship with is what's considered, and this is right in the Lojong slogans. And it's the first one, it's the first recording you're going to get from me. It concerns what's considered to be the preciousness of a human birth. So, in all of the Dharmic traditions, there's an understanding that we're not going anywhere. We've never been anywhere. We're not going anywhere. But what we are is just, existence, and existence is going to exist in all of its forms, and it's going to iterate itself in many, many different ways. And it continually does so. And you could say that's the cycle of the reincarnational understanding, is that we will, die and then be this other being and then be this other being. And we just have this endless number of beings that we are being. And some people, you can like collapse time and space, be like, there's no time, there's no space, it's simultaneous. And that's why, there's a lot of ways to think of it. You can get very mystic about it, but, and you can just, cosmic, surf consciousness and see what you find. But the understanding is that, that there's something very precious about being born a human, and that being born in other perceptual states of consciousness that are associated with other beings, even other sentient beings, other cosmic beings, is not as advantageous, because we get to really like get in here, and like the idea is like we get to really get in here and actually like we actually get to awaken. So they say that there's particular realms where there's an there's like a incredible freedom that's natural to that realm. This is Buddhism now, not Trikashaiva, not any of that stuff. There's these realms where there's an incredible bandwidth of freedom that is accessible, but you can't actually completely awaken. And they'll say that in human beings, you can go from like having like a very, very narrow perception of reality all the way out into like radical, complete awakening, and their understanding of like, that's just what that tradition, that's what I know about it. But in terms of like, is it only on this earth? I mean, I'll put it to you this way. To me, in this teaching and in this context, it's going to be incredibly practical. So my question to you is, well, do you have access to something off the earth personally? And if you do, then you can do your bodhisattva activity there. But I would say one way or another, you're also here. So it's a great place to just like, let's do it here, because we're here and we're now, and we are the earth. In this lifetime anyway, we are the earth. This is what the earth is right now. What you are, what I am, what we are. Is that helpful, Charisse?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Just checking the chats. Okay. One more little piece, and then we're going to do another. We'll close with practice that I'm just delighted to teach and delighted to share. Okay, last piece. And this is getting us into, getting us into the whole practice, is what we started with, which is Guru principle. And I want to explain that in these traditions, its understanding is that you have a guru, and the guru, like you'll hear some of the teachings that you'll read stuff and you'll be like, that's terrifying. That could end up with somebody doing grooming, all kinds of things, because there's a real pedestalizing of the guru, because the guru principle is considered very high. Now you could say that it's understood that in order to traverse, to walk the yogic razor's path, right? It's considered, remember they talk about yoga, it's a razor's edge because it's so easy to cut your foot on it. It's so easy to fall off on either side. It's the thinnest possible edge to walk. And many of you who are yogins will know exactly what they're talking about. But they say that you need some kind of a skilled guide, or you need an energetic entity. You need something that's going to help you do the path. Yeah. Otherwise, you'll just get lost in there. They'll say like it'll just become another version of samsara. You won't be able to kind of really get into the thing. That's the traditional say all these things. Now, in the tradition that I am a part of with my teacher, my acharya, through Sri Bridget Tantra, she's very clear, and I'm pretty sure that this is a widely held tantric view, is that a guru can be the deity itself. The guru can be a lot of different things. So I like this phrase, guru principle, because you can just put the guru principle up there. You see, guru is like the principle that there is a guiding light for this whole thing. That's the principle. The principle, and you could also put your future awake self there if you want to really get down to it. And I'm talking this is very paradigm grindy of me. But I feel it's important because there's a lot of fucked up shit because we as earthlings right now are really working through our vectors of power differentials. And we live in an existence in an astonishingly dense mesh of oppressive hierarchies, where access to resource is controlled through these vectors of oppressive hierarchy. And so therefore, when we're asked to like just put something, really just say like the guru, you see, if you read some of the things, you'll be like, listen, your teacher knows what's good for you. They're always looking out for you. They never have a bad word. They really basically almost like that the teacher is a perfected being. And this becomes very complex. It's like I said, like on the front end, it looks great. You go in the back, you're like, whoa. So what I want to say is let's keep it, I want to encourage you to keep it simple for yourself, but I need to tell you about the Guru principle because I would encourage you to it feels meaningful to me that my direct Guru is the deity form, is Paradevi. And I didn't choose it because I felt I had an idea about it. In fact, sometimes I have a regret that I'm not more connected to a lineage stream where I can say like the teacher goes there and then that teacher. I play around with the Guru, the actual Guru, in my practices with the Sri Vidya of putting the actual Guru and saying the actual name of the Guru and stuff. But I know that my actual Guru is Paradevi. It's just, I meant to just go straight to the divine. That's kind of just my bag, man. I don't know why. But to understand that these practices and all of tantric practices, the Guru principle is very, very important. But the understanding, even in some of the Guru lineages that I'm directly connected with, I'm thinking of Swami Chidvilasananda, otherwise known as Guru Mai. She's like, the ultimate Guru is you. So the awakening and the awakened state and that transparency of your own being is you. So it is accessible to you as well. So I just want to lay that all out because you'll read this stuff and you might be like, I need to text in the WhatsApp group that I feel weird, because of some stuff with the gurus. And of course, we know that some of the South Asian traditions that there is this, very imperialist relationship between caste-based hierarchies, religious hierarchies, and even esoteric spiritual practices that then mirror the imperialist hierarchies. And I think, I'm not sure you've had that worked out. I mean, earnestly, from my own perspective, I think that there's not some not understanding in there from what it looks like to me. But I'm just another being out here doing the thing. So I could also be wrong. I could also finally get to a position where I get it. Now I see. I seem to go deeper into critique and haven't got to the point where I'm like, no, now I see why you do that. Because of all the reasons. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, let's practice. I want to invite you to put your stuff aside and stand up. And I'm still going to be working with folks. I'm going to stay here and work with folks. You're going to have to do this in your imagination at home. That's the only way. I realize that because we have a physical space, I want to take up that space and let these folks have this experience. But we're leading into the practice of Tonglen. we're gonna practice Tonglen. So just, yeah, put your stuff to the side, just so that we have a space to walk around in. You can just kind of mush it to the side. We're gonna walk around just a little bit. So I'm gonna encourage you to keep the energy really tight as we transition, because we only have another sort of 40 minutes of our time together, and I want us to get to this practice fully. As you make sure all the blankets are just pushed to the side. You're gonna walk around the room in just a moment. So just get everything out the way. You will come back into your space or just sit wherever you are, whatever's clever. So, and we're gonna do this, and I'm gonna ask, you're gonna do, the online version is gonna be to simply imagine that you're walking up to somebody, and it may be someone you know, and it may be someone whose face you remember, and it may be anybody. You're just gonna imagine it as best you can and intend, and we're gonna just do this practice. So first we're gonna presence suffering. But we're just gonna say, like, there is suffering. Yeah, just presence it in a very simple way. You don't have to feel any particular way. We're just gonna really acknowledge it. And we're gonna do this thing, I want to invite you to do this thing that I somehow learned to do, of like, you're almost like gonna tap the heart. You don't have to tap it physically, but you take your awareness and you tap on your heart, meaning you tap your organ of spiritual perception. Tap it. You just have this sense of, and I want to say you could do it like this with your hand, but there's almost a way that you're going to tap it with your energy, with your own inside yourself. Just a little. And now we're going to begin to walk around the space. So folks at home are going to imagine that you're walking around a space with a whole bunch of other people in it. And then, yeah, walk around for just another moment. And now pause and turn to someone nearby. Just turn around. And meet the person's eyes and inwardly say the phrase, inwardly, like me, this person suffers. And then begin to walk around the room again. And so we're same at home, we're just imagining, we're just looking at, gonna meet the eyes of another person, maybe someone we know. And then stop again and go up to somebody else. Softly look into their eyes just for a moment and do that acknowledgement. Like me, this person suffers. And then go on and then move on. And now we're going to just take it a little deeper, stop and meet somebody else. And as you meet their eyes and as you do that acknowledgement, see if there's some of your energy can kind of almost like let yourself perceive a little of the shape of their suffering, just a little something of it, how this person suffers. And then move on again. And stop again and turn to someone nearby. And you look into their eyes and tap on the heart and inwardly make the acknowledgement, like me, this person suffers. And then you just let yourself have a little something of having a sense of the shape of the suffering, a little something of that. Yes, just like that. And then move on again. And then stop again. And if you're in a triad or you need to find someone, you just do. And then you meet their eyes. And you make the acknowledgement. And you let yourself take in just like the sense of the shape of it. The loss or the grief or the pain or the delusion. And then you move on again. And then meet someone else. Take a moment to find them. Here we go, here's Steph. And then you meet the eyes. Here, Marina, you can find people. Here you go. You went across the room. And then do the acknowledgement and let yourself take in a little of the shape of it. And then move on. Okay, 2 more times. Find someone else who you haven't seen. Turn around and face them. Here we go. And then find someone else again. That's it. And it might take a moment to find that person in the room. But a little something of the shape of their suffering. And from this space that we are moving in together, let this begin to open up a little something of your compassion. And that sense, and you can maybe close your eyes now and see if there's any, even the tiniest little seed of the desire to relieve suffering. The desire to relieve, that sense that in seeing suffering, there is some desire to relieve it. And we're going to take that desire and make your way into a seat. Bring yourself to your seat. Just stay really tight inside and negotiate as little as possible for your real estate. Come and take a seat. You could even sit down. If you're comfortable, you could sit down on the floor wherever you are. And we're going to learn the practice of Tonglen. If we don't already know the practice of Tonglen. And so now keep that sense like, yeah, this desire, there is a will, there's a desire there to relieve suffering. And I would say that is the seed, that is the bodhisattva principle that you're tasting when you feel that. When you have that sense, that drive, that's the bodhisattva principle. And now we're going to move from there to practice a formal practice of Tonglen, the Tibetan term for sending and taking. Tonglen, sending and taking. And in this practice, we are actually going to, I think it's useful to say, think of our body as a suffering transmutation machine. I don't like to use the machine metaphor, but it's helpful. Yeah, that there's something in us that fundamentally can turn the darkness of suffering into light, that we have that transmutational ability. And the way that we activate this is by consciously choosing a particular suffering, anything, and I will guide you very specifically on what we'll work with, to take in, and we're going to take it into the center of our body, the space between our crown and our seat. And then we're going to breathe into wherever the source of that suffering is, light. So this is going to take a little preparation. So you need to use what's called the object of Tonglen, which is whatever suffering you are taking, literally taking, because it's sending and taking. We're going to take the darkness and the suffering, and we're going to send light. We're going to take the darkness and the suffering. And the way that I was taught it, I usually teach it in a more simplified manner. I'm going to teach you exactly the way I was taught it by Pema Chodron, which is to move it from the crown of your head into the central channel known in the Tantric Yogas as Sushumna Nadi. You move it into, you don't have to say Sushumna Nadi, but you move it into the center, and that then you out of it, out from that center, light, and then the light beams at that person. Now, the emphasis in formal Tibetan practice is not on they don't talk about the transmutational part, but I can tell you through practice that that is what is occurring. And the reason, the principle by which this operates is the unity of reality as energy. Because if an energy occurs as a suffering, the energy can also occur as a light. And so now we are activating that for ourselves. And this is the Bodhisattva kind of soldier drill that we do in this training. Okay. It's really important. A lot of us have become really afraid of other people's energies. Many of us have good reason to have that. There's a lot, all other people energy, my energy. This paradigm is saying there's one energy. However it's occurring is how we're going to take it in. And the thing that always goes is light. And that we always have that capacity. And I will work individually with folks where there's hiccups. Okay. That's what satsangs are for. And that's also what the WhatsApp group is for. Okay. So take your seat. We're going to first choose an object. And the advice is to choose an object that is not a huge suffering when you begin. So you could choose the suffering. I mean, that somebody stubbed their toe. It was painful. It was like a sharp, where they kind of clipped their fingers in the window and it really stuck, really smarted, right? It really hurt. There's a suffering in that. We're going to take that level of suffering first. So you need to choose an object where it's like not too heavy because we need to build up. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. Okay. So choose a suffering. A person, probably easier for it to be a one person in a particular suffering. Decide what it is. And then we're going to start, once you've got the object, we're going to go through the rigors of the practice. So once you've got the object, just in your mind's eye, sketch out crown to seat. The sticky suffering is going to come in, the light's going to go out. You just sort of picture it. You don't do it, you just picture it. Just so you have an understanding. Okay. And now we're going to do the first step of Tonglen, which is called flash on awareness. So take your awareness to awareness. Take your attention to the context in which all of your thoughts arise, so the context in which all concepts are iterated, the context, the awareness itself. Flash on awareness. And then if you want to just get a little bit stronger, anybody who feels apprehensive, you do that tapping on the heart. That's extra. That's not formal. That's just my addition. You can tap on the heart. Yeah, I have a compassion. There's something in me that wants to relieve suffering. And now imagine your object, or have a sense of your object somehow in front of you. And that suffering, that object, whoever it is, the suffering. And now you're going to breathe the suffering and as a sticky kind of black cloud, like a sticky gray kind of stickiness, like a heaviness and a density. And you breathe it in through the crown of your head, into the center of your body. And now you're going to send directly through, as you exhale, you breathe it out as light and you move it into that person. That's it, or that being, okay? Okay, so you're going to inhale and breathe it in through the crown. And you're going to exhale and send it out. That's it. And you can do this, I want to say, some of you will feel, you keep going like this, breathing in sticky, heavy, gray, kind of dingy, sticky darkness, kind of sootiness. And breathe out light, just the light, the kind of clarity, the luminosity and the clarity. And keep breathing, keep moving like this. Now you can you can do this on as gentle a breath as you want. There's no instruction that the breath has to be particularly heavy. Some of you will feel to move your breath in a heavier way. Some of you, it'll be very soft. And it's totally perfect either way. When I do this, my breath is very soft, but I really have the sense of that movement of the energy, spatially. That's it. All right, last couple rounds of Tonglen for this object. Okay, and now dissolve that practice, and we're gonna choose a second object. And this object is gonna be a little bit like maybe a slightly deeper kind of suffering is what I recommend. So this could be something like a disappointment, like a friend lost a job. They're sad and disappointed, or they didn't get what they wanted, or so I'm going to actually leave it to you to choose a slightly heavier form, a form of suffering that's a little denser in your experience, in your perception. It occurs as a little bit denser. And it will do the same thing. You sort of place the object in front of you, trace from the crown to the seat, the sense of a center, like a tube from your crown to your seat. And then some of you will also add the little tap on the heart, that little like, yeah, I want to relieve suffering. Tap on the heart. And then the next thing is to flash on awareness. Always begin Tonglen with the flash on awareness. And then we begin the taking. So now you breathe in. This like slightly denser suffering, we work with the next. Breathe it into the crown of your head. And breathe it all the way down into your seat. And then from that seat, beam light out of your head, all the way from the center of your body out into that being. Try and make the sense of the thickness and the stickiness and the sense of taking it in as vivid as you can. It doesn't have to be a visualization. It can just be that energetic sense. I am taking this suffering into this. I'm going to take it. And then I'm going to give back the light. And we're going to do the last few breaths of this slightly heavier object. That's it. Last breath. Okay. Now, dissolve that object. And we'll choose one final object of our Tonglen. And you're invited now to judge what you can handle. And if you want to if you want to go for a slightly deeper suffering that feels more charged for you, you can do that. But if you feel, no, I need to build up more slowly, then you do that. Okay. So, you choose. So we start again, we choose the object, place it in front, sketch crown to seat as this sort of tube of transformation. And then we're going to maybe tap the heart. And then flash on awareness. Take awareness to awareness itself. That's it. And now begin. Start by taking the cloud of gray, sticky, heavy, dense, sort of small, contracted, whatever kind of suffering it is. It comes in like a cloud and you take it in through your crown. And then you breathe out the light into that body, into that being, directly into the heart of that suffering that someone else is or something else is experiencing. And then keep going like that. Last few breaths. And then do the last breath. Send the light out as strong as you can. And then let the object dissolve and take a few breaths from the crown to the seat and the seat to the crown. You could call it freshening breaths from crown to seat and seat to crown. That's it. Okay. And then take a moment to just sit in presence. Just a moment. And then take your thumbs across the tips of your fingers. Take a deep breath if you want. Reach your arms overhead. You can blink your eyes open if you want. Take a little stretch. Okay. Okay. So that's a very fundamental practice for our whole year. So it's reflected in one of the Lojong slogans. Tonglen is very significant practice. Has anyone practiced Tonglen before? Yeah, it's a great practice. So I tried to give it to you as formally as I could. There's actually some other steps, and maybe when we come together in March, I'll try and lead a practice session where we have some of the other steps. Because actually, in Kong Trul's commentary on the slogans, he describes practicing like a very intensive form of metta bhavana, which is another Mahayanist Buddhist practice, in preparing for Tonglen. So we'll try and do that next time. But you got a version of that in this acknowledgement. So now we have two significant practices just before we share. I want to highlight it. One practice is to go around the world, let your eyes fall on anybody, and have that acknowledgement. Like me, this person suffers. And I encourage you to do this, especially those of you who have like work folk that you're around who maybe are annoying. Really useful. So you're actually really starting to bring this in. Yeah, like me, this person suffers. And if you can do the extra step of trying to get it, like just like let yourself flash on like a sense of the shape of their suffering. This is not time for the Pisces to go drinking someone else's sensation world, body sensation experience in wholesale. And I know that some of us have constitutional types where we're a lot more liquid. And so then it's like we put a little tiny drop of blue in and the whole bowl is blue. We're just now blue. And now I'm blue for the rest of the day. We're going to, those folks who have that kind of constitution, we're going to have to really work to create more steadiness. That's where one of the other Lojong slogans, do Tonglen for yourself, is going to come in really handy. Okay, so we start to learn how to be really strong and work very skilled energetically so that we can really do the thing. But now I want to open it for shares. And I wish this was working because then I could just hand it to you. Like, shit, I'm going to have to repeat it for the camera and for the folks at home. But yeah, shares, also questions, but I'd really love shares and experiential shares now because this is a lot of information for today. So yeah, how was that? And also share at home, Molly and Richard. You can type it in. Actually, you could actually speak and I'll just turn the volume up. You can actually, so you just raise your hand and be like, I want to speak, and I'll turn the volume up. Everyone's going to be able to hear you. Be nice to hear your voice. You have a share, Richard? Yeah, let me turn the volume up. Okay, speak and let's make sure everybody can hear you.
Thank you for the space. I've practiced Tonglen before, but never quite this formally. So I just want to express how wonderful it is to have this direct transmission of the way to do Tonglen in a systematic fashion. I found it to be very, very moving. I did have a question. When I moved to the deeper aspect or portion of the Tonglen practice, I found myself reflecting on someone who's no longer here. They've passed on. Yeah, and I wanted to know if that's practical to use someone that's no longer here.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. We can practice Tonglen for stuff that happened thousands of years ago if we want. In fact, it might be a good moment for that. We can practice Tonglen for things that happened a long time ago that we're aware of. We can practice Tonglen for anyone, anything, any situation. if you get really, you know, kind of big about Tonglen, you can take in you can take in a lot of suffering. Yeah, really. I used to practice, there were some like housing projects where I really got my big Tonglen training was that I lived very, like literally my altar was facing, like if you went through the houses that I lived in, there would be big housing projects. And I knew there was a lot of suffering because I saw it on the street. You know, it was like I was very present to the suffering that was there and the suffering that was in my neighborhood because it was, yeah, very visible in lots of different ways. And that was how I was practicing, like just like all the suffering from this whole community. I was basically taking on the suffering of my neighborhood in the Tonglen. So that was my choice. And I was in my 20s then. I was really young and that was present. But you can also, there's a lot of historical events that you can practice Tonglen with, and also particular people who passed away, all kinds of things. So yeah, great question. Thank you, Richard. And thank you for your share. Yeah. Another share. Yeah, Ava.
On the last round that we did.
Last round.
Shall I just hold it because I'm near?
Well, I then have to move. It's a
Alright,
bit of a
okay.
story. You could come close if you want.
I can hear. I don't know if Richie can
Yeah,
hear.
we can hear quite fine actually.
Oh, good. I love it. Great.
On the last round where you invited us to pick something a little bit bigger, I picked something that was a situation with like more than one person. And I knew like the situation was quite a big situation. So I thought, let me just do like, because I know in the past you said you can just do like a smaller percentage of the situation. So I did that and I just picked like a smaller percentage, and still I found that I kind of like zoned out, like I kind of dissociated, and I was like thinking about some traffic I was in earlier on. And I was just like, oh, and it didn't happen on the other times.
Right.
So I felt like something in my body was just like, no.
Yeah.
And it didn't kind of happen in the same way.
Okay.
I also had dissociation with the big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it may be helpful when you can do, I would start to practice doing Tonglen for yourself. My friends who feel disassociation, focus, I would not say this for everybody, but if you felt like I really couldn't hold my attention there, do it for yourself and do it right for the pain in you, that place of contraction. Do it right for the place where the disassociation is the pattern that emerges. Yeah. And see how that goes and give some feedback. That's a suggestion. We'll keep working with it. Of course, what Ava said is true. I mean, I've kind of designed this program like we're going to just get out the kind of big, huge boots. We're going to put on the fire suit. You know, we're going to do the thing, and we're going to be like raw, like big, sort of heavy, sort of very heavy practitioners in a way. But you need to build up to it, and so you can practice with lighter objects, and you can also practice the percentage method, and then you just keep working with it. But part of it is also that you have to kind of choose that I have an energy system that is capable of becoming more resilient. You have to choose it. If you choose it, you will inevitably move at that direction at whatever pace is most appropriate. Okay.
I'm sure maybe off the back of this is that I really, maybe it's a pleasure, but I really enjoy spaces where suffering, one suffering, our suffering, collective suffering is held and respected and acknowledged. That's often sometimes not the case in other kind of quote unquote healing justice spaces. And as a practitioner myself, I've got clear on really what this is. We're talking about liberation, we're talking about practice. We need to get clear and be explicit with the terms of like suffering and one's own suffering, our suffering, one another, the world, Mama Earth, you know. So yeah, I definitely felt into some reassurance, actually some ease in that with the practice of walking around and like the acknowledgement collectively. You know, it's hard, it's tough, it's not easeful, but you can bring ease and compassion to it. And I actually really felt that, like, allowed my body to soften, and it helped me circle back to my first share earlier on, where I like named into pain and suffering. And I guess, yeah, kind of off the back of what you said, Ava, is that for me, when I felt into my body go, ooh, with the third step, I just had to kind of go, oh, this is suffering, this is pure suffering, this is how my body has learned to meet it through various reasons. So yeah, I was able to then soften and deepen and find the space, find some breath in there through the practice.
Yeah.
But it was definitely something that I want to keep close and come back to over the year in this space, because it's quite rare for me to like go there sometimes in collective spaces. So maybe it's an affirmation that I'm willing to be. So yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, Lily.
You sort of link to that.
I just need to raise your voice.
Oh, sorry.
I just want to make sure.
Can they hear me okay?
Yeah, we got a thumbs up.
Linked to that, I found, the first part of the exercise, the walking around and then the stopping and the eye contact, really powerful. I'm really grateful to people that I've got eyes with. It was really kind of beautiful experience actually. And then I felt a contrast when I came to the sort of pure Tonglen practice of finding it harder to, visualize that suffering. Because I really felt I felt a real connection with it and a sort of a manifestation of it with the physical presence of people. So I think that's a really kind of interesting, useful thing I'm going to keep with me.
Yeah.
It was really powerful to get that connection, I guess, with that feeling of realness.
Yeah. And I want to also say, obviously, if we go around doing like me, this person suffers, which by the way is like direct teaching from Pema Chodron when I first met her. So this is you'll see it may, because the cultivation is the cultivation of this in the sense of immediacy of the suffering and the sense of it not kind of dulling out in some way. But I also want to share something else. And now this is a little bit paradoxical, that the simple intention to do it is good enough, for sure. And we live in a moment historically where we're very obsessed with how we feel, like what sensations we're having, and we have a lot of meanings associated with sensations. But I want to remind you that like part of the paradigm, one of the paradigms I'm bringing in for us to work with is all sensation is change. End of sentence. And then if we view sensation as change and not as knowledge that is being disclosed, if we view it as change, not as any particular thing, then are we able to like kind of a little bit like in a way release our attachment to things feeling a certain way and to make them real. Because actually what I would say is reality is real enough. And it's real enough. How much do we have to feel to affirm the reality of our existence? It's a really open question. We may happen to be constitutionally people who have a lot of sensations. We may happen to constitutionally be people who have fewer. But this is really, if we want to get into wakefulness, we're going to have to we're going to get into it's almost like a narrower path in terms of like understanding that our capacity has to have fewer and fewer requirements and our activity has to be stronger and stronger. Does that make sense? So I feel to share it. I mean, it's not a direct response in a way. It's also because I want to make sure that's in the group because it seems useful. So yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Can I share with that?
Yeah, for sure, Rane. She's not talking yet.
I feel like something that was coming up for me was noticing the difference between when you were the first person to introduce the practice of Tonglen to me, I think, 2018 or something. And I remember even at the like stage 1 level, finding that difficult to practice, and I would try and do it like on my commute. And through today's whole session, really noticing how much I create meaning out of like sensation or change, and this belief that like not much has shifted in my capacity, but actually doing the practice again, seeing that there is definitely more of an understanding of like the ultimate in relation to the relative
Mhm.
and multiple things existing on the different veiled levels. Yes, still having the dissociation when like I picked a really big thing, and that was a lesson to make it a little bit smaller. But maybe like shift, there's like something that I'm picking up here about shifting how I measure my own change.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's not quite really coherent, but that's the kind of direction of the show.
Thank you. I also feel to say just a little reflection is that if you chose a big object and then you disassociate it, it's also like a measure of your desire to relieve suffering. No? Yeah, go ahead, Charisse.
It's the on the biggest form of suffering. I was cautious about choosing something that felt like didn't have the power to hold,
Mhm.
or that might end up feeling left in my entity in some way, or like
Mhm.
a family member that's, you know, terminal suffering. Then that thing of, I don't know how then to approach that. Is it like, or whether that's just left, or whether there's someone who's more powerful in the practice. I don't know how to. It's that thing of like measuring suffering. I feel like is just going down the wrong way,
Mhm.
and I know that, and I'm hoping that if I'm just holding strong in my intention
Mhm.
of being compassionate towards that person, that's enough. But I'm just like, when choosing how much I can hold, it just gets quite confusing.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, Charisse, you have to experiment for you, and also just like maybe I think for you might be like write a bunch of things down and just see what it looks like when you've written it. And then like pick a couple things and work with them for a while and see how it goes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you can, I mean, it's really, especially if, the folks who with the neurodivergence where one thing turns into 50 things very quickly, like literally in like a breath. People are there's people in the room looking at each other. It's so funny. Everybody should also be looking at me. Like, so if that thing of like, it goes to this, to this, to this, to this, this is a practice. This will actually be very supportive of whatever cultivation of concentration you wish to open in your life. This is going to help with that. And you'll see that like it'll get to the point where like you can have the 50 things, but you're still doing the one thing and you're just doing it. And it's like moving even like your breath can be very subtle when it's moving and it's still, so part of it is also just that we sit in meditation every day. We're going to start to find our seat, and that seat is going to help us. Like I realized that I was never, just as an aside, I was never diagnosed with neurodivergent with ADHD. And part of it was my age group. I was just probably a little bit too old for that to be like super common, but it was in the schools, it was around. And it's like shocking to me. But I realized also that like as an adult, there was no extra thing about it. And I was like, because I started meditating when I was 23. And it's like, it just will shift and it's not masking. It's actually just having more capacity to engage more of what's really there. Because a lot is really there, even inside the kind of particular structure of your perceptual and cognitive world. There's so much more than most of us think. You know what I mean? So I say that in a deep bow to my fellow neurodivergents. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Yeah, just
I
like
think in some ways it's saying like trying to keep it simple.
Yeah, you can keep it really simple, my friends. You could do the same few objects for the whole first few months of this, or maybe the whole year even. It would be great. Because what starts to happen is it starts to be very automatic that you realize, oh, I'm doing it when I sleep. I'm always doing it. I'm actually always doing it. I'm just doing it. I'm just practicing Tonglen. Because I realized that we get into the subtle energetics, and we're going to close really soon. We've started just a few minutes late, so I'm running to about the time that we I can't remember that we started. Can't remember the word for starting. There's also perimenopause. There's a way that like the subtle energetics of this become it's almost like you have an egregore in your consciousness that's just doing Tonglen. Do you know what an egregore is? An egregore is an idea that becomes so powerful that it's essentially a being. You can make them. Well, you also you also are relating with them all the time because there's lots of egregores out there. Yeah, okay. But you can have them for yourself. You can have Tonglen egregore. Let's see. We're gonna finish in like really 5 seconds. Really, really. When I say we're gonna finish, I mean we're really gonna finish. So I want to give a thank you to everyone. I want to say blessings of love. I will make a clear statement both in the WhatsApp and also by email of like, remind you of what we said of practices, everything that we did in that way. I'm gonna give a stretch for those people who don't have to just run right away. Yeah. So I want to, we'll do a partner stretch. Yeah, if you don't have to run away. So you just have, it's like a little nice thing afterwards. Thanks, sense. And actually, Catherine, just go because you have a baby. Okay. And then for everybody else, we're going to do a little partner stretch. And I want to just say also, if you want to come and like look at the face of Richard or Molly, you can come by and we'll just then assemble with a partner and I'll teach you the stretch. So if you want to come and smile at the people online. Molly, you can come on if you want. If not, don't worry. Yeah, I know. We're just going to walk around a little bit. We'll grab a partner in that way. Yeah, come on in. Say hello. That's so. Here, come on in. Show your face. Show your face, friends. Don't just look at them. Let them see you. Legs. And it's also all the people in the recording are going to see you. Hi. Give a blessing. All that. Okay, and then for folks out here, here's the start to get a partner. So you're going through. It's fine. Keep cycling through. You can work more than one partner. Ava, remember this one? So you take your feet a little wide. Bend your knees. Take the opposite forearm, reach across. So you're going to use your right and they're using their left, or they're using their right and you're using your left. And you take it and then you just sit back and do your butt. I got you. I don't need to. Take your bum more back than down. You're squatting. Take your bum back, not down. Take a deep breath. Okay. You got it? Got the stretch? Yeah. And now stand up. Yeah. Have a nice stretch. Folks at home, do a downward facing dog. Folks in the recording. Go up to the wall and stretch. That's it. And then push into your feet to come up. Go find somebody else and do the same stretch. I'm going to come over to the people at home. Love you, bless you. So good to be with you. I love you so much. So to have you. I'm telling you, it's delightful. Thank you. Blessings of love, Molly. Great to see you. And I'll see you in the satsang. I hope. Yeah. See you in satsang. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful day.
This is when I wish I had someone.